Tonight, you lie down not to wrestle with tomorrow or to replay yesterday. You lie down to meet what is actually here. This breath, this darkness, this quiet. For thousands of years, across mountains and monasteries from Korea to Vietnam, from Tibet to Japan, Buddhist practitioners have discovered something astonishing. The peace you seek does not live in some distant future where conditions finally align. It lives in the only moment that truly exists. If sleep finds you during these stories, let it come. These teachings work whether your eyes are open or closed, whether your mind follows every word or drifts into rest. Your body knows how to absorb wisdom even as it releases the day. These reflections are contemplative in nature, drawn from Buddhist wisdom traditions, offered for rest and gentle support, not as medical or therapeutic advice. Tonight we walk through 8 complete journeys, each one a doorway into the eternal now. We will visit Korean hermitages, where monks asked a single question until all seeking dissolved. We will sit with Vietnamese masters who found infinity in washing dishes. We will meet Chinese wanderers who discovered that this very moment, just as it is, contains everything. Feel your shoulders settle into the bed. Feel the weight of your head against the pillow. Notice how your breath moves without effort, without planning, without you doing anything at all. You are already here. You have already arrived. There is nowhere else to be. Let these stories carry you deeper. In the year 1849, deep in the Jurisan Mountains of southern Korea, winter pressed against the stone walls of Hweomsa Temple like a living thing. Snow had fallen for 3 days without pause, burying the mountain paths beneath silence. Inside the meditation hall, 40 monks sat in rows, their breath forming small clouds in the frozen air. The hall smelled of aged wood and stone, of incense burned over centuries, of sweat and discipline, and something else, a clarity that lived in places where humans had asked the same questions, over and over, until the questions themselves wore thin. At the far end of the hall, barely visible in the dim light of oil lamps, sat a young monk named Gyeongheu. He was 23 years old, though his face already carried the gaunt intensity of someone who had forgotten how to rest. His back was straight as temple pillars. His eyes were open but saw nothing of the hall, nothing of the other monks, nothing of the snow beyond the paper doors. For 18 months, Gyeongheu had been asking himself one question. Not with words exactly, words had fallen away after the first few weeks. He held the question the way you might hold a burning coal, something so immediate it demanded everything. The question was simple, impossibly simple. What is this? Gyeongheu had come to Hweomsa as a boy of 16, fleeing an arrangement his family had made. They were minor nobility, his parents, with just enough status to marry him into a merchant family that would secure their declining fortunes. He remembered the girl they had chosen, 13 years old, shy, with eyes that looked at him with a mixture of hope and terror. She wasn't the problem. The problem was that Gyeongheu had already tasted something else. One afternoon in the marketplace, he had seen an old monk sitting completely still beside a vegetable stall. Just sitting. The marketplace roared around him, vendors shouting prices, children running, dogs barking, wheels of carts grinding against stone. And this old monk sat as if he existed in a different world entirely. Not peaceful exactly, more like complete, as if nothing was missing, as if this moment, exactly as it was, with all its noise and chaos, was somehow enough. Gyeongheo had stood watching for an hour. The monk never moved. People walked past him as if he were a stone marker. When Gyeongheo finally worked up the courage to approach, the monk opened his eyes and looked at him with such directness that Gyeongheo felt seen for the first time in his life. "What are you?" the monk had asked. Not who are you? Not what do you want? What are you? Gyeongheo couldn't answer. He stood there with his mouth open like a caught fish. The monk smiled, not kindly, not unkindly, just a smile, and said, "When you find out, come and tell me." That night, Gyeongheo left his parents' house. He walked through darkness to Weomsa Temple and knocked on the gate until someone let him in. Now, 7 years later, he was still trying to answer that old monk's question. Except now the question had changed. Or maybe he had changed. Or maybe there was no difference. His teacher here, Master Wulmyong, had given him a different version of the same inquiry. "What is this?" Wulmyong had said. "Right now, in this very moment, before thinking arises, before naming begins, before you grab at it with understanding, what is this?" Gyeongheo had been working with this question day and night for 18 months. He asked it when he woke. He asked it while carrying water. He asked it while eating, while walking, while sitting in meditation until his knees screamed and his back felt like iron. He asked it until he forgot he was asking, until the question became more real than breathing. But nothing had opened. Nothing had cracked. He felt like a man throwing himself against a wall that had no door. On this particular night, the coldest night of the year, something was different. Gyeongheo could feel it in his bones, a kind of brittleness, as if he himself were about to shatter. He had not slept properly in 4 days. During meditation sessions, he sometimes couldn't tell if his eyes were open or closed. Reality had taken on a strange, translucent quality, like looking at the world through ice. Master Wulmyong had noticed, after the evening sitting, as the other monks filed out to their sleeping quarters, Wulmyong called Gyeongheo to his small room. The master was 70 years old, his face creased like paper that had been folded and unfolded too many times. He sat by a small brazier, the only source of heat, and gestured for Gyeongheo to sit across from him. "You look like a ghost," Wulmyong said. "I feel like one, Master." "Good." Gyeongheo blinked. "Good? When you feel like a ghost, you're close to seeing what's real. Ghosts have no substance. Neither does the person you think you are." Wulmyong poured tea into 2 rough ceramic cups. The steam rose between them. But being close is not the same as arriving. You can stand at the gate of a house for 10,000 years. It doesn't mean you've entered. "Master, I've been asking, what is this, for 18 months. I ask it every moment. I ask it until I forget my own name, but nothing happens. The question just sits there." Wulmyong sipped his tea slowly. "What do you want to happen? I want to understand." "Ah, there's your problem." Gyeongheo felt frustration rise in his chest like heat. "Isn't that why we practice? To understand? To understand what? To understand this reality, truth, whatever you want to call it. And who is the one who wants to understand?" Gyeongheo opened his mouth, then closed it. This was the trap his teacher always laid. Any answer he gave would be wrong. Wulmyong set down his cup. "Listen to me carefully. The question, What is this is not an intellectual puzzle for you to solve. It's not a riddle with a clever answer. It's a sword to cut through every idea you have about yourself and about reality. But you're using it like a key, trying to unlock understanding. That will never work. Then, what should I do? Nothing. Do nothing. Just stay with the question. Don't try to answer it. Don't try to understand it. The question itself, the bare, naked questioning without any hope of resolution, that is the practice. That is the doorway. Gyeonggeo felt tears prick his eyes, though he couldn't have said why. I don't know how to do that. You already are doing that. You've been doing it for 18 months. The problem is you keep looking for results. You keep checking to see if you've gotten it yet. That checking, that looking back, that's what keeps you outside. Woo-myung stood, signaling the conversation was over. Go back to the meditation hall. Sit all night if you need to. Stop trying to get somewhere. You're already here. Gyeongheo walked back through the snow to the meditation hall. His feet were numb. The cold felt like knives against his skin. He slid open the door and entered the vast darkness. The oil lamps had been extinguished. Only moonlight filtering through the paper doors provided any illumination, turning everything into shades of blue and black. He sat in his usual place, crossed his legs, straightened his back, and immediately the familiar frustration arose. Here he was again, sitting again, asking again, getting nowhere again. But this time, something in him let go. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was something his teacher had said. Maybe it was just that he had finally, truly, completely run out of hope that effort would save him. He asked the question, "What is this?" And for the first time, he didn't reach for an answer. He didn't analyze. He didn't think about what it meant or whether he was doing it right. He just asked and stayed with the asking. The question hung in the air like the monastery bell after it's been struck, resonating, fading, leaving only. What? Gyeongheo looked at his hands in the moonlight. What is this? Not what are hands. Not what is the biological function of these appendages. Just, what is this immediate, undeniable presence? His hands sat there in his lap. Solid. Real. Except were they? He could see them. But what was seeing? He could feel them. But what was feeling? The more closely he looked, without trying to name or understand, the stranger everything became. What is this breathing? What is this cold? What is this sitting? The questions weren't separate anymore. They had merged into one continuous questioning, a kind of radical openness that didn't want anything, didn't expect anything, didn't know anything. Hours passed, or maybe no time passed at all. Gyeongheo had no idea. At some point he couldn't say when a bird began to sing outside. Not a dawn bird. Something else. A night bird's call cutting through the darkness. Gyeongheo heard it. And in that hearing, something impossible happened. There was no Gyeongheo hearing the bird. There was no bird being heard. There was just this. Just the sound. Just the hearing. Just the immediacy of it. No separation between observer and observed. No gap between the question, "What is this?" and the answer that wasn't an answer, but was the thing itself. Igaspid. Not from understanding, from recognition. It had always been here. Always. Every moment of his life. This presence, this immediacy, this just thisness. He hadn't needed to find it, or achieve it, or understand it. He had been living inside it the entire time, like a fish asking, "What is water?" while swimming in the ocean. The tears came then, hot against his cold cheeks. Not tears of joy exactly. Tears of what? Relief? Recognition? The word didn't matter. Nothing needed to be named anymore. He sat there as the night gradually softened toward dawn. The question, "What is this?" was still there, but it had transformed. It was no longer a question seeking an answer. It was the living awareness of each moment as it arose and dissolved. It was the mind meeting reality without the filter of concepts, without the delay of thinking. When the morning bell rang, Gyeongheo stood and walked to Master Wolmyong's room. He knocked once. "Come in." He entered and bowed. Wolmyong looked at him, and a smile spread across the old master's face. "So," Wolmyong said, "you've stopped asking with your head." "I've stopped asking for an answer." "And what did you find?" Gyeongheo shook his head. "Nothing to find. Nothing to lose. Just this. Just exactly what's here." Wolmyong nodded slowly. The question, "What is this?" is not a question that leads to an answer. It's a question that leads to awakening from the dream of separation. In each moment, there is just this. No past, no future, no problem to solve. Just the bare, naked presence of what is. Gyeongheo stayed at Hwaeomsa for 3 more years. But he was different now. He still sat in meditation. He still asked, "What is this?" But the asking had changed from seeking to recognition. Each moment revealed itself as complete, as enough, as the only thing that ever existed or ever would exist. He noticed that suffering came from leaving this moment, from dwelling in memory, from projecting into fantasy, from comparing what is to what should be. And whenever he noticed that departure, the simple question, "What is this?" brought him back. Not back to some special state, just back to this, to the ordinary, miraculous, already present reality of right now. One spring morning, Master Wolmyong called him into the teaching hall before the other students. "You've been here 10 years, Wolmyong said. "It's time for you to go." Gyeongheo felt a pang of loss, then smiled at the pang. Even loss was just this. "Where should I go?" "Master, wherever you are, there you are. Teach by your presence, not by your words. Help others discover what you discovered, that they're already home, already complete, already living in the eternal now." Gyeongheo bowed deeply. When he stood, Wolmyong handed him a small piece of paper. On it was written, "Before thinking arises, what is this? Keep this question alive." Wolmyong said, "Not as a prison, but as a doorway. Every moment is new. Every moment is the first moment. Every moment is the only moment." Gyeongheo left Hwaeomsa that afternoon. As he walked down the mountain path, he noticed everything with fresh eyes. The moss on the stones, the way light filtered through pine needles, the sound of his own footsteps, and underneath it all, the question humming like a quiet song. "What is this? What is this? What is this?" Not a question anymore. Just presence. Just awareness meeting life exactly as it appears. Just this. In that small meditation hall, in the depth of a Korean winter, Gyeongheo discovered something that has been rediscovered by practitioners in every tradition. across every century. The eternal now is not some mystical realm beyond ordinary life. It's the only realm that exists. Think about it for a moment. Have you ever experienced the past, not the memory of the past, actual past itself? And have you ever experienced the future? Not worry about the future, not planning for it, but actual future reality. No, you haven't. Because past and future don't exist as experiences. They exist only as thoughts arising right now. Everything you've ever experienced, everything you will ever experience, happens in this moment. This breath, this sensation, this awareness. The eternal now is not something to achieve. It's what you're already living in, have always lived in, can never leave. Yet we spend our lives overlooking this. The mind races to yesterday, replaying conversations, regretting choices, wishing things had gone differently. Or it leaps to tomorrow, planning, worrying, fantasizing, trying to control what hasn't happened yet. And in all that mental time travel, we miss the only moment we actually have. This one, when you're washing dishes and your mind is churning through tomorrow's meeting, you're not really washing dishes. You're lost in thought. When you're eating dinner while scrolling through your phone, reviewing the day, you're not tasting your food. You're somewhere else. This is the human predicament. We live in our heads instead of in our lives. We mistake the mental commentary for reality itself. Gyonghaeo's question, "What is this?" is one of the great tools for breaking this trance. It's used in Korean Seon practice, but the same inquiry appears everywhere. Zen calls it, "What is this?" Tibetan teachers ask, "Who is aware right now?" The question shifts, but the function remains the same. It stops the mind's habitual movement. It interrupts the constant stream of labeling, judging, comparing, remembering, anticipating. It creates a gap, and in that gap, you can actually meet this moment directly. Try it now, gently. Don't force anything. Just ask yourself, what is this? Not intellectually, not looking for a clever answer. Just, what is this immediate experience? You might notice breath. You might notice the feeling of lying in bed. You might notice sound. You might notice thinking itself. Whatever arises, it's all happening now. All of it is this eternal present moment revealing itself. The question doesn't need an answer. The question is the answer. The questioning itself is a form of presence, of attention, of meeting reality without the filter of concepts. Feel the mattress beneath you. Feel your breath moving by itself. You're not making the breath happen. It's happening. Life is living itself right here, right now, whether you're paying attention or not. The peace Gyonghaeo found wasn't some transcendent state beyond ordinary life. It was the peace of finally arriving in the only place he ever was here. Now, this, when worry about tomorrow arises, the question, "What is this?" brings you back. When rumination about yesterday takes over, the question brings you back. Not as a forceful technique, more like a gentle hand on your shoulder, reminding you, you're here. You're always here. There is only here. This doesn't mean you never think about past or future. You still remember what you need to remember. You still plan what needs planning, but you do it from presence, not from the trance of believing that past and future are more real than now. Right now, your body is here. Your breath is here. Life is here. When you're fully here with it, Even difficult things soften. Even pain changes. Not because it goes away, but because you're not adding the second layer of suffering, the "this shouldn't be happening" story, the "when will this end" anxiety, the resistance that makes everything worse. Just this moment, just this breath, just this sensation of being alive. That's all meditation really is. Not achieving some special state, just returning, again and again, to what's already here, to what has always been here, to what cannot not be here, because here is all there is. And as you return, something gradually shifts. The eternal now stops being a concept and becomes a living reality. You realize that all the peace, all the freedom, all the okayness you've been seeking exists right here, in the middle of ordinary life, hidden in plain sight. What is this darkness behind your closed eyes? What is this quiet of nighttime? What is this moment of listening to these words? Don't search for an answer. The searching itself is part of the dream. Just be here. Just notice what's already happening. The breath breathes. The heart beats. Awareness witnesses it all. You don't have to do this perfectly. You can't do it perfectly. The moment you try to do now correctly, you've left now. Just return when you notice you've wandered. Return without judgment. Return with gentleness. Return to this. Return to here. Return to the only moment that exists. Let your shoulders drop. Let the jaw soften. Feel the weight of your body sinking into the bed. You're already here. You've always been here. Welcome home. As that understanding settles into your bones, into the cells of your body. As the question, "What is this?" becomes less like work and more like recognition. Feel your breath slow just a little bit more. Feel the temperature of the air against your skin. Feel the darkness wrapping around you like an old friend. You don't need to hold on to anything Kyongheo learned. You don't need to remember his story or practice his technique. Just notice you are here, right now, in this moment, and this moment is enough. Breathe in, breathe out. Feel the simple miracle of that. And as you rest in this eternal now, we travel to another time, another place. But the same truth waiting to be discovered, that presence is not something to achieve, but something to recognize. Here, always here, in the beating heart of this single, precious, already perfect moment. In the city of Hue, Vietnam, in the year 1923, there lived a man named Min who had dedicated his entire adult life to the preparation of tea. Not the hurried brewing of leaves in a kitchen, but the meditative art form that had been passed down through generations, the careful heating of water, the precise selection of leaves, the choreography of pouring and serving that turned a simple beverage into a gateway to something deeper. Min's tea house sat on a narrow street near the Perfume River, a small wooden structure with a tiled roof that curved upward at the corners like hands in prayer. Inside, the room was sparse but immaculate. A low wooden table, cushions for sitting, shelves holding ceramic pots and cups, each one chosen for the way it held heat, the way it felt against the lips, the way it revealed the color of the tea inside. The room smelled of jasmine and wood smoke, of river water and thyme. Morning light filtered through rice paper windows, casting soft shadows that moved like breath across the walls. In the corner, a small altar held incense and a simple statue of Kwanam, the bodhisattva of compassion, her face serene, her hands open. Min was 53 years old, his hair more gray than black now, his hands steady from decades of practice. He had studied under a master in the imperial court, back when there still was an imperial court, before the French had reshaped everything. He had learned that tea ceremony was not about tea. It was about presence. It was about creating a moment so complete, so whole, that nothing else existed. Or so he had been taught, and so he had tried to practice. But lately, something troubled him. Min had come to the practice of tea by accident, the way most important things in life arrive unplanned. As a young man of 17, he had been apprenticed to his uncle, a carpenter who built furniture for wealthy families. He was good with his hands, patient with wood, but his heart was not in it. One afternoon, sent to deliver a table to a mansion near the citadel. He had arrived early and been told to wait in a small receiving room. An old man was there, preparing tea. Min watched, transfixed, as the man moved with such deliberate slowness that each gesture became its own universe. The way he lifted the pot, the way he poured water over the leaves, the angle of his wrist, the sound of liquid meeting ceramic. The old man had noticed him watching. Without a word, he poured a second cup and gestured for Min to sit. Min drank the tea. It was jasmine, simple and clean, but something about the way it had been prepared, the attention, the care, the absolute presence in each movement made it taste like more than tea. It tasted like time itself had slowed down and concentrated itself into that single cup. "What is your name?" the old man had asked. "Ming." "Do you know what you just drank?" "Tea," the old man smiled. "You drank this moment. You drank the water that came from the river this morning. You drank the leaves that grew in the mountains. You drank the fire that heated the water. You drank my attention as I prepared it. You drank your own presence as you received it. Tea is just the excuse. The moment is what matters." Something in Min's chest had cracked open. He forgot about delivering the table. He sat with the old man for 3 hours, not speaking much, just drinking tea and feeling something he couldn't name, a kind of aliveness. A sense that this simple act of sharing tea contained everything that mattered. The next day, he asked his uncle's permission to stop carpentry and study with Master Tu, the tea master. His uncle thought he was crazy. His mother wept. But Min was certain. He had tasted something real, and he wanted to understand it. He studied with Master Thieu for 12 years, until the master died peacefully one morning after preparing his final pot of tea. Min inherited the tea house and continued the practice. He married a woman named Lan, who understood his devotion to stillness. They had 3 children, all grown now, with lives of their own. For 36 years, Min had served tea to scholars and laborers, to monks and merchants, to anyone who came through his door. He had perfected the forms his master taught him. He could prepare tea with such precision that the temperature, the timing, the pouring were flawless. But lately, and this was what troubled him, he had begun to notice something. He could prepare perfect tea while his mind was somewhere else entirely. He could execute every movement correctly while thinking about his daughter's upcoming wedding, or the leak in the roof, or the political tensions simmering in the city. The forms were perfect, but something essential was missing. It was a humid morning in late summer when everything changed. Min had just finished preparing the tea house for the day. The floor swept, the water heating, the leaves selected, everything ready. A young Buddhist monk appeared at his door. Very young, perhaps 19 or 20, with the shaved head and brown robes of the Tibetan tradition. He bowed deeply. "Master Min, I have heard about your tea. May I sit with you this morning?" Min gestured him inside. The monk removed his sandals and sat across from the low table. Min began the preparation. He heated the water to exactly the right temperature, not boiling. But just before he warmed the pot, he measured the jasmine leaves with care. He poured the first infusion, waited, discarded it. Then the second pour, the one for drinking. All perfect. All correct. All utterly mechanical. He served the young monk, who accepted the cup with both hands and sipped slowly. They sat in silence. Min waited for the usual compliments, the appreciation for the refinement of the tea. Instead, the young monk set down his cup and looked at Min with clear, steady eyes. "Where were you just now?" the monk asked. Min blinked. "I was here, preparing tea. Your hands were here. Your body was here. But you, where were you?" The question landed like a stone in still water. Min felt his face grow warm. I was thinking about some repairs needed for the roof. I could taste it," the monk said gently. The tea was technically perfect, but it was empty. There was no presence in it. Min felt something between shame and relief. Someone had finally seen what he had been hiding, even from himself. "I don't know what happened," Min said quietly. "For years, preparing tea was like breathing. I was completely present. Every movement was meditation. But now, I go through the motions. I think about other things. The quality hasn't suffered, but the presence has disappeared." The young monk nodded. "May I tell you what my teacher says about this, please?" He says that there are 3 stages in practice. First, you learn the forms. This is necessary. You must train the body, learn the techniques, understand the traditions. Second, you perfect the forms. You become skilled. Everything flows smoothly. This is where most people stop. They think perfection of form is the goal. The monk paused, sipped his tea again. But there is a third stage. You must go beyond the forms. Not abandon them, that would be chaos. But allow the forms to become transparent. Allow them to serve presence instead of replacing it. In this third stage, you might make small mistakes in the form, but the tea is alive. It carries your complete attention. It carries this moment. Min sat very still. How do I reach this third stage? You can't reach it by trying. You can only notice when you've left the present moment and return again and again, not as a technique, but as a homecoming. After the young monk left, Min sat alone in his tea house for a long time. The morning light had shifted. Dust motes drifted through the air like tiny stars. He could hear the river outside, the sound of boats, voices calling to each other in the distance. He realized he had been trying to perfect the past. His teacher had prepared tea with such presence, and Min had been trying to recreate that. But he had been recreating the form of it without the essence. He had been copying the outside, while the inside, the living awareness, had gradually drained away. That afternoon, when his next guest arrived, an elderly scholar who came every week, Min decided to do something different. He would prepare tea with no agenda. No trying to be present. No trying to be perfect. Just preparing tea. Just being here. He heated the water, But this time, he felt the warmth rising from the pot. He noticed it. Not thought about it, noticed it. The actual sensation of heat against his face. He measured the leaves. And instead of just executing the movement, he felt the texture of the leaves between his fingers. Dry, crisp, fragrant. He smelled them. Really smelled them. He poured the water, and he listened. Actually listened. To the sound it made. The way the pitch changed as the pot emptied. The way the water met the leaves. Nothing special was happening. He was just doing what he had done 10,000 times before. But this time, he was here for it. Present to each small moment. The scholar accepted his tea and drank in silence. Then he looked at Min with surprise. "This is the best tea you've ever served me." Min smiled. "The tea is the same. But I was here this time." Over the following weeks, Min discovered something remarkable. Presence wasn't something he could force or manufacture. It was already here, always here. The only question was he available to it? When he noticed his mind had drifted to the past or future, to memories, to plans, to worries, he didn't judge himself. He just returned. Felt his hands. Felt the warmth. Heard the sounds. Returned to what was actually happening. And gradually, the tea ceremony transformed from a performance of perfection into a celebration of nowness. Sometimes his pour wasn't quite right. Sometimes the timing was off. But it didn't matter. What mattered was that he was there. Fully there. Meeting this moment exactly as it was. One morning, preparing tea alone before the house opened, Min had a sudden realization. The tea ceremony had never been about creating a special moment of presence. It had been about recognizing that every moment was already special, already complete, already sacred, if only he showed up for it. He didn't need the ceremony to be present. He could be present anywhere, doing anything. Washing dishes, walking to the market, lying in bed at night. The form didn't create the presence. The presence revealed itself when he stopped abandoning this moment for some imaginary better moment. Years passed. Min grew older. His hands became more gnarled, less steady. His perfect pours became less perfect. But his tea became legendary. People traveled from other cities to sit with him. Not because of his technique, there were younger masters with steadier hands. They came because drinking tea with Min felt like stepping out of time. Felt like returning to something essential. Felt like coming home to a place they didn't know they'd been missing. When people asked him his secret, he would smile and say, "There is no secret. I am just here when I pour the tea. That's all." But sometimes, with students who were ready to hear it, he would say more. For years, I tried to perfect the form. I thought if I could make every movement exact, I would achieve presence. But I had it backward. Presence doesn't come from perfecting the form. Presence reveals itself when you stop trying to be somewhere else. When you stop trying to be better than you are. When you finally accept that this moment, exactly as it is the only moment there is. One afternoon in his 71st year, Min was preparing tea for a group of young students from the Buddhist temple. His hands shook slightly as he poured. A few drops spilled on the table. He paused, looked at the spilled drops, and laughed. "Even this," he said. "Even mistakes. Even imperfection. It's all this moment. All worthy of complete attention." He finished pouring, served the tea, and drank with the students in easy silence. The river sounds drifted through the window. Incense smoke curled upward. Everything exactly as it was. Everything already complete. Nothing to achieve. Nothing to perfect. Just this. Just now. Just the eternal present moment revealing itself in the simple act of sharing tea. What Min discovered through tea ceremony, we can discover through anything. Washing dishes, walking, eating, working. The activity doesn't matter. What matters is presence. Think about your daily activities. How often are you really there for them? When you shower, are you feeling the water or planning your day? When you eat breakfast, are you tasting the food or scrolling through your phone? When you talk to someone you love, are you listening or waiting for your turn to speak? We live so much of our lives on autopilot. The body goes through the motions while the mind is somewhere else, reviewing the past, rehearsing the future, judging, comparing, planning, worrying. And in all that mental activity, we miss our actual lives. The Vietnamese Zen teacher Thich Nhat Hanh taught this with beautiful simplicity. He said, washing the dishes is at the same time a means and an end. We do the dishes not only to have clean dishes, we also do the dishes just to do the dishes, to live fully in each moment while washing them. This is what Min rediscovered. The tea ceremony wasn't about the tea. It was about being fully alive while preparing it. And once he understood that, everything became tea ceremony. Everything became an opportunity for presence. You can practice this right now, right here. Feel the sensation of your body against the bed. Don't think about it, feel it. The pressure, the temperature, the texture of the sheets. Notice your breathing. Feel the air moving in and out. You don't have to change it or deepen it. Just notice it's happening. Hear whatever sounds are present. Traffic. Silence. Your own heartbeat. Don't label the sounds as good or bad. Just hear them as they are. This is it. This is presence. Not some elevated spiritual state. Just direct contact with this moment. Simple. Ordinary. Always available. The practice is not to maintain this awareness every second of every day. That's impossible and exhausting. The practice is to notice when you've left and return. To notice when the mind has drifted into story, into past, into future, and gently, without judgment, come back to now. Feel the breath. Feel the body. Notice what's here. In the middle of a difficult conversation, you can return to now. Feel your feet on the ground. Feel your breath. Notice this is what's actually happening. Not the story about it. Not the fear of where it's going. Just this. In the middle of anxiety about tomorrow, you can return to now. What is actually happening in this moment, not in the imagined future. Here. Now. Usually, right now is manageable. Right now, you're breathing. Right now, you're okay. This doesn't mean you never think about past or future. Of course, you remember what you need to remember. Of course, you plan what needs planning. But you do it consciously, from presence, rather than unconsciously losing yourself in time travel. Min learned that the eternal now isn't somewhere else. It's not achieved through perfect technique or years of meditation. It's here. It was always here. We just keep overlooking it because we're looking for something more special, more dramatic, more significant than this simple, ordinary, already present moment. But there is nothing more significant than this. This breath is your life. This moment is all you have. Everything else, every memory, every plan, every worry, every hope exists only as a thought arising now. When you wash your hands, feel the water, feel the soap, feel the temperature. Be there for those 15 seconds. That's meditation. That's presence. That's touching the eternal now. When you walk from one room to another, feel your feet touching the floor. Feel the movement of your body through space. Be there for those 10 steps. That's coming home. When you lie down at night, feel your body settling. Feel gravity pulling you down into rest. Feel the darkness, the quiet, the simple fact of being alive in this moment. That's enough. That's everything. You don't need a tea ceremony. You don't need special circumstances. You don't need to be somewhere else or become someone else. You just need to be here, fully here, again and again and again. And when you notice you've left, when you catch yourself lost in thought, spinning in worry, rehearsing conversations, don't judge it. Just return. As many times as needed. 1,000 times a day if necessary. Each return is a homecoming. Feel your shoulders relax. Feel your jaw soften. Let the breath move by itself. Without your help. This moment, just this moment. Nothing else is needed. As you rest in this simple presence, this ordinary awareness of what's actually here, as the weight of trying to be somewhere better, someone better, gradually releases. Notice how the breath continues, how the heart continues, how life continues to live itself whether you're paying attention or not. And gently, so gently, allow your attention to settle even deeper. There's nothing to hold on to, nothing to figure out. Just this quiet darkness, just this moment of rest. From the tea houses of Vietnam, we travel now across mountain ranges to the high plateaus of Tibet, where another practitioner discovered that presence isn't something we create, it's something we recognize. Here in the vast spaciousness of each moment, in the simple awareness that notices everything but clings to nothing, in the recognition that this moment, just as it is, has always been enough. In the year 1687, high in the mountains of eastern Tibet, there lived a shepherd named Dorje, who spent his days watching over a small herd of yaks in the meadows above Katok Monastery. The land was vast and empty, rolling grasslands that stretched to horizons so distant they seemed to curve upward into sky. In summer, wildflowers covered the ground like scattered jewels. In winter, snow buried everything in silence, so complete it felt like the earth itself was holding its breath. Dorje was 28 years old. Though he looked older, the mountain sun had weathered his face. The wind had chapped his hands until they were rough as bark. He wore a thick chuba made of yak wool, sturdy boots, and a wide-brimmed hat that did little to keep the elements away. His face was broad and honest, with eyes that had spent more time looking at sky and stone than at other human beings. He lived alone in a small stone hut at the edge of the high pastures, a single room with a small hearth where he burned dried yak dung for warmth. The walls were thick against the cold. A single window faced east, toward the monastery far below, its golden roofs visible on clear days like small suns resting in the valley. Inside, Dorje had few possessions. a sleeping mat, a pot for cooking champa, the roasted barley flour that was his main food, a wooden bowl, a prayer wheel his mother had given him before she died, though he rarely used it. He wasn't particularly religious. He knew the prayers, knew the rituals, but they had never touched him the way they seemed to touch others. The monastery bells rang 5 times each day, their sound carrying up the mountain even to his remote pasture. Other shepherds would stop their work and murmur prayers. Dorje would pause too, but only because the bells marked time: morning, noon, afternoon, evening, night. They were a clock, nothing more. Dorje had been born in a small village 3 valleys away. His father had been a shepherd, and his father before him. It was the family trade, passed down like a name. As the youngest of 5 children, Dorje inherited the smallest share, 12 yaks, which was barely enough to survive on, let alone thrive. He had come to these particular pastures 5 years ago, following his herd as they sought fresh grazing. The land was good here, if isolated. The monastery owned most of the surrounding territory and allowed shepherds to graze their animals in exchange for butter and cheese. It was a fair arrangement. Dorje was content with the solitude. He had never been much for conversation. Words felt clumsy in his mouth, never quite capturing what he meant. Up here in the high meadows, he didn't need words. The yaks understood simple commands. The land asked nothing of him but attention, watching for predators, noticing when the herd wandered too far, reading the weather in the color of the sky. His days followed the same pattern. Wake before dawn. Eat a handful of sampa mixed with butter tea. Lead the yaks to pasture. Sit on a rock and watch them graze. Move them if they wandered. Watch for wolves. Watch for signs of illness in the animals. Watch the clouds. Watch the grass bend in the wind. Return to the hut at dusk. Eat, sleep, repeat. It was a simple life. Some would say boring. But Dorje didn't find it boring. He found it. He didn't have a word for it. Sufficient, real, uncomplicated. He had tried marriage once, briefly. A girl from his village named Pema, arranged by their families. She had lasted 3 months in the mountains before the loneliness drove her back to the valley. "How can you live like this?" she had asked him. "Nothing ever happens. Nothing ever changes. I'll go mad up here." Dorje hadn't known how to explain that he liked it when nothing happened. He liked the sameness, the rhythm, the way each day was its own complete world. After Pema left, he didn't try again. He was better suited to yaks than to people. One afternoon in late autumn, when the air had begun to carry the first hint of winter, Dorje was sitting on his usual rock, watching the yaks graze, when he noticed a figure approaching from the direction of the monastery. This was unusual. Few people came this far up the mountain, and never without reason. As the figure drew closer, Dorje saw it was a monk. Old, perhaps 70, with a white beard and a walking stick. He moved slowly but steadily, as if the steep climb cost him nothing. When the monk reached Dorje's rock, he bowed slightly and said, "May I sit with you?" Dorje gestured to a flat stone nearby. The monk sat with a small sigh, set down his walking stick, and looked out at the grazing yaks. They sat in silence for a long time. Dorje wasn't sure what to say. The monk didn't seem to expect conversation. Finally, after perhaps an hour, the monk spoke. "What are you doing?" he asked. Dorje blinked. "Watching the yaks." "And what else?" "Nothing else. Just watching." The monk smiled. "Just watching. Do you know how rare that is? Most people are never just doing what they're doing. They're always somewhere else in their minds." Dorje didn't understand. Where else would they be? Thinking about yesterday. Worrying about tomorrow. Wishing they were somewhere different. Being here without being here. The monk looked at him with bright, clear eyes. "But you're actually here. Present. Watching yaks." Dorje felt embarrassed, as if he'd been caught doing something wrong. "It's my job. It's more than a job. It's a teaching." The monk gestured at the landscape, the endless sky, the grass moving like water in the wind, the mountains in the distance still holding snow on their peaks. All of this exists only now. The past is gone. The future hasn't arrived. There is only this moment. And you live in it naturally, without effort. Do you know how precious that is? "I don't understand." The monk nodded. "May I tell you something? Down in the monastery, monks spend years trying to learn what you already know. We sit in meditation for hours, trying to quiet our minds, trying to be present. But our minds won't stop chattering. They jump from thought to thought like monkeys in trees. We use techniques, prayers, visualizations, all to try to arrive here. Now." He paused, watching a yak scratch its head against a rock. "And you," the monk continued, "you sit on this rock every day and you're just here. No techniques needed. No effort. You're already what we're trying to become." Dorje felt confused and a bit defensive. "I'm just a shepherd. I don't know anything about Buddhism." "You don't need to know about Buddhism. You need to recognize what you're already experiencing. Tell me, when you sit here watching the yaks, where is your mind?" Dorje considered this. "Here, watching, and when a thought arises about what to cook for dinner, or whether a yak looks unwell, what happens to that thought? It comes and goes. And do you grab onto it? Do you follow it into a long story?" Dorje shook his head. "No. I just notice it and return to watching." The monk slapped his knee. "Exactly. This is Rigpa, pure presence, natural awareness. This is what all the teachings point toward. The ability to rest in the present moment without getting lost in thought. You've been doing this for years without knowing it had a name." After the monk left, promising to return in a few days, Dorje sat on his rock, feeling strange. He looked at the yaks the same way he always had. He felt the wind the same way. Everything was exactly as it had been an hour ago. And yet something had shifted. The monk had given him a new way of seeing what he'd been doing all along. He had thought his life was simple and maybe a bit meaningless. Just watching yaks. Just getting through each day. But the monk had suggested it was something else. Something valuable. Something that people spent lifetimes trying to learn. Over the next few days, Dorje began to notice things he had never paid attention to before. Not new things, the same things he'd been experiencing for years. But now he noticed the noticing. He noticed how thoughts would arise: a memory of his mother, a concern about winter, a plan for repairing the hut, and how they would dissolve if he didn't feed them with attention. They were like clouds. They appeared, drifted across the sky of his mind, and disappeared. He noticed how sounds existed complete in themselves. The wind, a yak's low call, the bell around the lead yak's neck, Each sound arose, existed for a moment, and vanished into silence. Nothing held on to them. Nothing needed to. He noticed how his body felt the hardness of the rock beneath him, the cold air against his face, the warmth of sun when clouds parted. All of it happening now, all of it constantly changing, moment to moment. And underneath all of it, the thoughts, the sensations, the sounds, there was awareness. A kind of open space that noticed everything but wasn't disturbed by anything. The awareness didn't come and go like thoughts. It was always there, steady and quiet, like the sky behind passing clouds. When the old monk returned 3 days later, Dorji had a question ready. "You said I was already present, but now that I'm paying attention to presence, I seem to be thinking about it instead of just being it. Is that wrong?" The monk laughed. "Perfect question. This happens to everyone. First, you live naturally, without self-consciousness. Then you become aware of what you're doing, and suddenly you're observing yourself, which creates separation. The key is to move through that stage and return to naturalness, but now with recognition. I don't understand the difference. Before, you were present without knowing it. That's innocent presence, like a child playing, completely absorbed. Then you became aware you were present, which made you self-conscious. That's the middle stage, necessary but awkward. Eventually, you'll return to simply being present, but now you'll recognize it. You'll know what you're doing without the knowing getting in the way." Dorje frowned. "How do I get to that third stage?" "By doing exactly what you've always done. Watch the yaks. Feel the wind. Notice when thoughts come and go. Don't try to be present, you already are present. Just recognize it. Again and again, until recognition becomes as natural as breathing." The monk stood to leave, then turned back. "May I suggest something? Each morning, when you wake, before you do anything else, just notice you're aware. Don't think about it. Just notice. Awareness is here. Presence is here. This moment is here. Let that recognition settle in your bones. Then go about your day." The winter came, harsh and long. Snow buried the pastures for months. Dorje moved his yaks to lower ground near the monastery, where there was shelter and stored hay. He saw the old monk occasionally, though they rarely spoke. A nod, a smile. That was enough. Something had changed in Dorji, though he would have struggled to explain what. His life looked the same from the outside, same routine, same work, same solitude. But inside, there was a quality of spaciousness he'd never noticed before. He realized that presence wasn't something he created. It was what he was. Awareness wasn't something he cultivated. It was the ground of everything. The eternal now wasn't a special state to achieve. It was the only state that existed. When spring came and he returned to the high pastures, the land looked different. Not because it had changed, but because he saw it with fresh recognition. Each blade of grass was arising in this moment. Each movement of the yaks was happening now. Each breath he took existed for one instant and then was gone, replaced by the next breath, which existed for one instant and was gone. Nothing held still. Everything was constantly being born and dying, appearing and disappearing. And yet, awareness remained constant, witnessing it all without being touched by it. One morning, sitting on his rock as the sun rose over the eastern peaks, painting the clouds orange and gold, Dorji felt something release in his chest. A tightness he hadn't known was there. And he understood finally, deeply, what the monk had been pointing toward. This moment was all there was. Not as a concept, not as a philosophy, but as direct, undeniable truth. The past existed only as memory arising now. The future existed only as thought arising now. Everything was happening in this eternal present. And he had always been here, had always been living in now. He had just never recognized it. The recognition brought tears to his eyes. Not sad tears. Tears of gratitude, of relief, of coming home to something he'd never left. He looked at his yaks grazing peacefully in the morning light. He felt the cool air. He heard the silence that wasn't really silence, but was full of small sounds, wind, grass rustling, a distant bird. Just this. Just exactly this. Nothing missing. Nothing needed. The eternal now revealing itself in every ordinary moment. Perfect. Complete. Already whole. Dorji's story shows us something crucial about presence. We think we need to learn it, achieve it, earn it through years of meditation or spiritual practice. But presence is our natural state. We've just covered it up with constant mental activity. Watch a young child playing, completely absorbed in the moment. No thought of yesterday or tomorrow. No self-consciousness. Just total presence. That's our original nature. We were all born with it. But then we learn language, learn to think, learn to plan and remember and worry. We develop what Buddhists call conceptual mind, the endless commentary that narrates our lives instead of letting us live them. And gradually, we forget how to just be here. The Tibetan teaching of Rigpa points to this natural awareness. Rigpa means knowing or awareness, but not intellectual knowing. It's the direct, immediate recognition of what's here before thought labels it, before concepts divide it into subject and object. Dorje lived in Rigpa naturally because his life was simple and his mind was quiet. He wasn't particularly spiritual. He wasn't trying to be present. He just was present because there was nothing pulling him away from this moment. But we can all access this, regardless of how busy or complicated our lives are. The key is noticing the awareness that's already here, right now. Notice that you're aware. You're aware of these words, aware of lying in bed, aware of breathing. What is that awareness? Where is it? Try to find it. You can't find it as an object because it's the subject, the one who's looking. It's not a thing you have. It's what you are. This awareness is always present, always now. It never leaves. Thoughts come and go. Feelings come and go. Sensations come and go. But awareness remains constant, like the screen on which all images appear. When Dorje sat on his rock watching yaks, thoughts would arise: what to cook, whether a yak looked sick, memories of his mother. But he didn't get lost in them. They arose in awareness and dissolved back into awareness. He remained the watcher, not the watched. You can practice this right now. Notice whatever thoughts are present. Don't try to stop them, that's futile. Just notice them the way Dorje noticed clouds. They appear. They drift across the sky of your mind. They disappear. And what notices them? Awareness. Presence. The eternal now that's always here, always witnessing, never disturbed. This doesn't mean you stop thinking. Thinking is useful, necessary. But instead of being lost in thought, identified with every mental narrative, you can think consciously. You can use thought as a tool while resting in awareness. The difference is profound. When you're lost in thought, you believe every story your mind tells you. You suffer every fear, every worry, every regret as if it were reality. But when you rest in awareness, you see thoughts for what they are, mental events arising in consciousness, no more solid or real than clouds. Dorje learned that the eternal now isn't a mystical experience. It's the simple recognition that this moment is all there is. Not because we should live in the moment or because presence is a good idea, but because it's literally true. Show me the past right now. Show me the future right now. You can't. They don't exist except as thoughts arising in this moment. So where else could you possibly be except now? Feel your body breathing. That's happening now. Feel the bed beneath you. That's now. Hear whatever sounds are present. Now. Every single thing you experience in this moment. This recognition brings a deep peace, not because your circumstances change, not because problems disappear, but because you stop leaving this moment in your mind. You stop abandoning the only place you actually are. When anxiety about tomorrow arises, you can recognize this anxiety is a thought happening now. The tomorrow it's worried about doesn't exist yet. All that exists is this moment. And in this moment, right now, you're breathing. You're alive. You're okay. When regret about yesterday surfaces, you can recognize this regret is a feeling happening now. The yesterday it's replaying doesn't exist anymore. All that exists is now. And now is a fresh moment, untouched by the past. Let your body sink a bit deeper into the bed. Let the weight settle. Notice how gravity pulls you down without any effort from you. Notice how breath moves by itself. Life is living itself right now, whether you're paying attention or not. The eternal now isn't somewhere else. It's not tomorrow when you're more spiritual, or yesterday when you were happier. It's here, always here, waiting for you to recognize it. And when you do recognize it, when you truly arrive in this moment, you discover what Dorje discovered. Nothing is missing. Nothing needs to be different. This moment, exactly as it is enough. As that recognition settles into the quiet spaces inside you, as the eternal now becomes less like a concept and more like a felt reality, allow everything to soften just a little more. Your jaw, your forehead, your belly. Nothing to hold, nothing to figure out. Dorje's yaks are still grazing on those mountain meadows, moment after moment, each moment complete in itself. And here you are, breathing in this room, this darkness, this single precious now. From the high plateaus of Tibet, we descend now into the river valleys of China, where yet another soul discovered that the present moment isn't something we enter occasionally during meditation. It's the ground we're always standing on, whether we notice it or not. The eternal now that holds every past and future within itself, waiting only for our recognition to reveal its simple, ordinary, inexhaustible presence. In the city of Hangzhou, China, during the autumn of 1742, there lived a calligrapher named Wei Ling, who had spent 40 years perfecting the art of writing a single character, Yom, which means eternity or permanence. Her studio overlooked West Lake, A room on the second floor of a modest wooden house with windows that opened onto water and willow trees. The room smelled of ink and paper, of sandalwood incense, and the slightly musty scent of old scrolls. The walls were bare except for a single piece of calligraphy, not her own work, but her master's, written 60 years earlier. The character, Jung in bold, decisive strokes, the ink still black despite the decades. Below it, in smaller characters, a line from the Laozi, "The way that can be spoken is not the eternal way." Wei Ling's workspace was meticulously organized. Inkstones of varying sizes and qualities lined one shelf. Brushes hung from a wooden rack, some thick, some delicate as hair, each one chosen for a specific quality of stroke. Rolls of paper, ranging from coarse practice sheets to precious silk, filled a cabinet. Everything had its place. Everything served the single purpose of creating one perfect character. She was 63 years old, her hair completely white now, pulled back in a simple bun. Her hands were stained with decades of ink that never quite washed away. Her back curved slightly from years of bending over her work table, but her eyes remained sharp, intense, capable of seeing the smallest imperfection in a brushstroke. Outside, West Lake reflected the autumn sky like polished jade. Boats drifted across its surface. Lotus flowers, past their peak bloom, nodded in the breeze. The city hummed with life, merchants calling, children playing, temple bells marking the hours. But inside Wei Ling's studio, there was only silence, concentration, and the eternal pursuit of a single perfect moment captured in ink. Wei Ling had come to calligraphy through grief. As a young woman of 23, she had been married to a scholar who drowned in West Lake during a sudden storm. They had been married less than a year. She had loved him with the fierce, complete love of youth, and his death had shattered something in her that never quite healed. For months after, she couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't find any reason to continue living. Her family worried she would follow him into death. Then, one afternoon, her uncle, a minor government official with connections to the scholarly class, brought her to meet Master Shen, an elderly calligrapher famous throughout the province. Master Shen had taken one look at Wei Ling's hollow eyes and said, "Your husband drowned in water. You are drowning in time. Come, I'll teach you how to escape." Wei Ling didn't understand what he meant, but she had nothing else to do, no other anchor to keep her from drifting away entirely. So she began studying with Master Shen. He taught her the basic strokes, first horizontal, vertical, dot, hook, the building blocks of all characters. She practiced each one hundreds of times, thousands of times, until her hand knew them without thinking. Then he taught her compound characters, showing her how each stroke related to the others, how balance and proportion created beauty. But his real teaching was elsewhere. When you write, he told her, there is only this stroke, not the stroke before, not the stroke after, only this one, right now. If your mind wanders to the past or future, the stroke will be dead. It will have no qi, no life force. Wei Ling didn't care about qi or life force. She just wanted to stop feeling the endless pain of absence. But she discovered that when she focused completely on a single brushstroke, preparing the ink to exactly the right consistency, loading the brush with precisely the right amount, feeling the pressure of bristles against paper, watching the ink spread and settle for those few seconds, the grief disappeared. Not because it was healed, because she was completely present. And in complete presence, there was no room for the story of loss. There was only this. Only now, over the years, the practice deepened. Master Shen died when she was 35, but by then she had understood his teaching. Calligraphy wasn't about making beautiful characters. It was about entering the eternal now, the timeless moment where past and future dissolved and only presence remained. She had never remarried. She lived simply, supporting herself by teaching calligraphy to children of wealthy families and occasionally selling a piece to collectors. She needed little. Her life had become the practice. The practice had become her life. On this particular autumn morning, Wei Ling sat at her work table, staring at a blank sheet of paper. She had risen before dawn, as always, had performed her morning rituals, washing, auntie, a few moments of sitting in stillness, had prepared her ink, grinding the inkstick against the stone with careful circular motions, adding water drop by drop until the consistency was perfect, had selected her brush, a medium-sized one made from goat hair, responsive but not too soft. Everything was ready. The paper waited. Her hand was steady. The character Yoon lived in her muscle memory after 40 years of daily practice. She could write it perfectly even in darkness. But something was wrong. She couldn't say what exactly. Her technique was flawless. Her preparation was meticulous. But lately, when she wrote, the characters felt hollow. Technically perfect, but somehow empty. Like a body without breath. She had been feeling this for months now. At first, she thought it was temporary, a rough patch. Fatigue, the natural fluctuation of any practice. But it had persisted, gotten worse. Even. Each character she wrote looked right but felt dead. Yesterday, a student, a bright young woman named May, who studied with her twice a week, had looked at one of Wei Ling's demonstrations and said, "Master, forgive me, but this character looks different from your older work. I can't explain how. It's technically perfect, but it doesn't have the same spirit." Wei Ling had dismissed it at the time, but the comment had lodged in her chest like a splinter. Because May was right. The spirit was gone. The qi had left, and Wei Ling didn't know why or how to get it back. She picked up her brush now, loaded it with ink, held it poised above the paper. The first stroke of Yong was a dot, simple and foundational. She had written this dot 10,000 times. She knew it intimately. She brought the brush down, made the dot, lifted the brush away, and immediately knew it was wrong. Not technically wrong. The size was right. The placement was right. The pressure was right. But it was dead. A corpse of a dot. Something made by rote memory rather than living presence. Wei Ling set down the brush and put her head in her hands. For 40 years, she had dedicated herself to this practice. And now, when her skill was at its peak, when her technique had been refined to the edge of perfection, now the practice had become mechanical, hollow, lost. She sat there for a long time, listening to the sounds of the city waking up outside her window. Vendors setting up, boats pushing off from shore, birds calling, life going on, indifferent to her crisis. Finally, she stood and did something she hadn't done in years. She left her studio in the middle of the morning, abandoning her practice session, and walked out into the streets of Hangzhou. Wei Ling walked without destination, just following her feet. Down narrow alleys fragrant with cooking food. Past temples where incense smoke drifted like prayer made visible. Along the edge of West Lake, where willows trailed their branches in water. She found herself at a small tea house she had passed 1,000 times but never entered. On impulse, she went inside. The interior was simple, a few low tables, cushions, the smell of jasmine tea. An old man sat alone by the window, looking out at the lake. Wei Ling ordered tea and sat at a nearby table. She had no plan, no reason for being here. She just couldn't bear to return to her studio and face another dead character. The old man glanced at her, then looked back at the lake. After a moment, he spoke. "You're the calligrapher who lives by the old willow, aren't you?" Wei Ling blinked. "How did you know? Your hands. Ink never completely washes away, and you have the posture, the slightly curved back, the focused eyes. I've seen it in calligraphers before." He smiled. "I'm Yuan. I used to teach at the provincial academy. Poetry and classics. Retired now." Wei Ling. They sat in silence for a while. Then, surprising herself, Wei Ling said, "Can I ask you something? Have you ever lost the ability to do the thing you dedicated your life to?" Yuan looked at her with sudden interest. "Tell me what you mean." So she told him about the 40 years of practice, about the character Yong, about how her technique had become perfect but empty, how she could execute every stroke flawlessly, but the spirit had vanished. Yuan listened without interrupting. When she finished, he nodded slowly. "May I tell you a story, please? When I was young, I memorized the classics, the Analects, the Mengzi, the Laozi, the Zhuangzi. I could recite thousands of lines perfectly. I knew every character, every commentary, every interpretation. I was considered brilliant." He paused, and I understood nothing. "What do you mean?" "I knew the words, but the words pointed to something beyond themselves, and I had never looked beyond. I was so busy perfecting my knowledge of the text that I never encountered what the text was teaching." "Do you understand?" Wei Ling felt something shift in her chest. "I think so. The character Yom means eternity, permanence. But eternity isn't something you write about. It's something you experience. And you can only experience it in one place, right here, right now, in this present moment that never ends because it's constantly being born." He gestured out the window at the lake. "Look at the water. Is it the same water as yesterday? No. It flows. It changes. It's constantly new. And yet the lake remains. That's eternity, not something fixed and unchanging, but something that's always fresh. Always now. But I've been trying to stay present." Wei Ling said, "That's what calligraphy taught me. To focus completely on this moment. This stroke. Yes. And you learned that well. So well that it became another form of technique. Another thing to perfect. You became so focused on being present that you forgot what presence actually is." "What is it?" Yuan smiled. "It's not something you do. It's something you are. It's not effort. It's release. Not holding. Not grasping. Not trying to capture the eternal moment, but recognizing you're already in it. Have always been in it. Can never leave it." Wei Ling felt tears prick her eyes. "I don't know how to do that." "You can't do it. That's the point. You can only let it be." Wei Ling walked back to her studio slowly, Yuan's words circling in her mind like birds. When she entered her room, everything looked the same: the brushes, the ink, the paper. But something in her had changed. She sat at her work table, looked at the blank paper, and for the first time in months, maybe years, she didn't prepare mentally, didn't review technique, didn't try to be present or focused or perfect. She just sat there, breathing, feeling the afternoon light through the window, hearing the lake sounds, noticing the slight breeze that moved the hanging scrolls. Then, without planning, without trying, she picked up her brush. She didn't think about the character Yong, didn't think about the stroke order or the proportion or the spacing. She just held the brush, felt its weight, felt her hand alive at the end of her arm. And she began. The dot appeared. Not because she made it appear, because her hand knew what to do and she got out of its way. The horizontal stroke followed, then the hook, then the complex final strokes that gave the character its structure and grace. The brush moved. The ink flowed. The character emerged on the paper like something being born rather than being made. When it was complete, Wei Ling set down the brush and looked at what she'd written. And she started to cry. The character was imperfect. The proportions were slightly off. One stroke was heavier than it should be. Another was lighter. By the standards of perfect technique, it had flaws. But it was alive. It breathed. It had chi in a way her recent perfect characters had lacked, because it hadn't come from trying to be present. It had come from presence itself, from the simple act of letting this moment be what it was. Over the following weeks, Wei Ling's practice transformed. She still prepared carefully. She still honored technique, but she stopped trying to control the outcome. She stopped grasping at perfection. Instead, she would sit with the blank paper the way Yuan sat with the lake, just present, just aware, just letting this moment be exactly what it was. And from that presence, the characters would emerge. Sometimes beautiful, sometimes flawed, but always alive. Her students noticed the change. Mei said, "Whatever happened, Master, your work has come back to life. It's like watching breath move through the characters." Wei Ling smiled. I stopped trying to capture the eternal moment and started recognizing I was already in it. What Wei Ling discovered after 40 years of practice, we can discover right now. The eternal now isn't something we enter through perfect technique or intensive effort. It's what we've been living in all along. Think about it. When you try really hard to be present, what happens? You create tension. You create a you who's trying and a present moment you're trying to reach. You create separation, the very opposite of presence. True presence isn't effortful. It's effortless. It's not something you do. It's what remains when you stop doing, when you stop trying, when you stop grasping. Right now, you're present. You can't not be present. You can be lost in thought about past or future, but those thoughts are happening now. You can be anxious or worried or planning, but that anxiety, that worry, that planning, it's all arising in this present moment. So the practice isn't to become present. You already are present. The practice is to recognize it, to notice it, to stop overlooking the only thing that's actually real, this breath, this moment, this immediate experience. Wei Ling had been trying to capture eternity in her brushstrokes. But eternity can't be captured. It can only be recognized. Eternity isn't somewhere else, some distant realm beyond time. Eternity is right here, in this moment that never ends because it's constantly renewing itself. The Chinese philosophers understood this. The Tao Te Ching says, "The way that can be spoken is not the eternal way." Why? Because the moment you try to grasp it, define it, capture it in words or concepts, you've moved away from the direct experience of it. This is why Wei Ling's perfect technique had become dead. She was trying to capture presence rather than be present. She was grasping at the eternal moment instead of recognizing she was already in it. When she finally let go, when she stopped trying and just let the brush move from presence rather than toward presence, everything changed. The characters became alive again because they emerged from aliveness rather than from technique. You can experience this right now. Feel your breath moving. Don't control it. Don't try to make it deep or slow or perfect. Just feel it exactly as it is. Notice how the breath breathes itself. You're not doing it. It's happening. Life is living itself through you, right now, without any effort from you. This is presence, not something you create, something you recognize. When you try to be present, you create a doer and a doing. I am trying to be present. But who is the I that's trying? That's just more thought, more mental activity, more separation from this simple, direct, already present moment. But when you let go of trying, when you just notice what's already here, there's no doer. There's just noticing, just awareness. Just this moment being exactly what it is. Wei Ling's flaw was thinking she needed to perfect her presence. But presence doesn't need perfecting. It's already perfect because it's already complete. This moment, exactly as it is, lacks nothing. Even if this moment contains pain or discomfort or difficulty, it's still complete. It's still the only thing that exists. And when you meet it directly, without the story of "this shouldn't be happening" or "I wish this were different," there's a strange kind of peace in it. Not the peace of everything being pleasant. The peace of everything being what it is. The peace of reality being met by awareness without resistance. Let your whole body soften. Let the effort drain away. You don't need to be present. You already are. You just need to notice. Notice the darkness behind your eyelids. Notice the sound of your own breath. Notice the feeling of gravity pulling you down into rest. All of it happening now. All of it, the eternal moment, revealing itself in ordinary experience. The calligrapher's perfect stroke isn't the one executed with flawless technique. It's the one that emerges from presence, from letting this moment guide the hand rather than the hand trying to control the moment. Your life is the same. The perfect life isn't the one where you flawlessly control every outcome. It's the one where you're present for what's actually happening, moment by moment, letting life live itself through you rather than trying to force it into some imagined ideal. This moment, just this, nothing else needed, nothing else even possible. As the trying dissolves, as the grasping releases, as you recognize you're already here, already present, already living in the eternal now. Feel how the breath continues without your help. Feel how awareness remains constant even as everything else changes. From the studios of Hangzhou, we journey now to the meditation halls of Japan, where yet another seeker discovered that the eternal now isn't found in achieving perfect states. It's found in meeting this imperfect moment exactly as it is, with all its ordinariness, all its flaws, all its unexpected grace, right here in the middle of a life that's always been complete, but was waiting for recognition to reveal its fullness. In the spring of 1891, at Eiheiji Temple in the mountains of Fukui Prefecture, Japan, a young monk named Kenji sat in the meditation hall during the pre-dawn hours, his legs crossed, his back straight, his eyes half closed. Around him, 70 other monks sat in identical postures, arranged in 2 long rows facing the walls. The hall was silent except for the sound of breathing and the occasional creak of old wood settling. The air was cold enough that each exhale formed a small cloud. Kenji's feet had gone numb an hour ago. His knees sent sharp signals of protest up his legs. His lower back ached with a dull, persistent throb. He had been sitting for 3 hours. Dawn was still an hour away. This was his life now. Had been for 2 years since he arrived at Eiheiji as a novice. Wake at 3:30 in the morning. Sit zazen until dawn. Breakfast. Work period cleaning, cooking, maintaining the temple grounds. More sitting. Lunch. More work. More sitting. Dinner. Evening, sitting. Sleep for a few hours. Repeat. The meditation hall smelled of incense and the particular mustiness of a building that had stood for 600 years. The tatami mats beneath him were worn smooth by generations of monks who had sat in this same spot, seeking the same thing Kenji sought: enlightenment, awakening, liberation from suffering. Outside, spring was arriving in the mountains. Cherry blossoms were beginning to bloom. Birds were returning from their winter migrations. The snow was melting, revealing the brown earth beneath. But inside this hall, there was only stillness, only breath, only the endless discipline of sitting. Kenji counted his breaths. 1 to 10, then back to 1. This was the practice his teacher had given him. Simple, mechanical, boring beyond description. He had been counting breaths for 2 years. Nothing had happened. No insight. No awakening. No sudden revelation. Just counting. Just breathing. Just sitting with aching legs and a mind that wouldn't stop chattering. Kenji was 24 years old, the 3rd son of a rice merchant from Kyoto. He had come to Eiheiji not out of deep spiritual calling but out of desperation. His 2 older brothers would inherit the family business. His parents had planned for him to enter government service, but he had failed the entrance examinations twice. He was good at nothing, talented at nothing, destined for nothing. One afternoon, walking through the temple district of Kyoto, feeling worthless and lost, he had encountered an old monk begging for alms. The monk's face was peaceful in a way Kenji had never seen in another human being. Not happy exactly, just settled, at ease, as if nothing could disturb him. Kenji had given the monk a few coins and asked, "How do you have such peace?" The monk had looked at him with eyes that seemed to see through all pretense. "I stopped waiting for peace to arrive and discovered it was already here." The words had struck Kenji like a bell. He had been waiting his whole life, waiting to be good enough, waiting to succeed, waiting for his real life to begin, waiting for some future moment when everything would finally make sense. "Can you teach me?" Kenji had asked. "Come to Eiheiji. Sit zazen. That's all the teaching there is." So Kenji had come, had been accepted as a novice, had thrown himself into the practice with the same intensity he had once brought to studying for examinations. He was going to get enlightened. He was going to achieve awakening. He was going to become one of those serene, unshakable monks who had transcended suffering. He sat zazen for hours each day. He studied the koans. He worked diligently at every task. He followed every rule with meticulous precision. He was, in his own estimation, a model student. But nothing happened. No awakening, no insight, no peace. Just more sitting, more aching, more counting breaths, while his mind spun endless loops of boredom and frustration and self-judgment. His teacher, Roshi Tanaka, was a man of few words. Ancient, with a face like weathered stone. When Kenji would report on his practice during their weekly private interviews, Roshi Tanaka would listen in silence, then usually say something cryptic like, "Continue sitting," or "What are you waiting for?" Kenji didn't understand what the Roshi meant. Of course, he was waiting for enlightenment, waiting for the breakthrough that would justify all this suffering. On this particular morning, sitting in the pre-dawn darkness, counting his breaths, Kenji reached a breaking point. His mind was louder than ever, a chorus of complaints and judgments. This is pointless. 2 years of sitting and nothing has happened. I'm wasting my life. Other monks seem to get something from this, but not me. I must be doing it wrong. Or maybe I'm just not capable of enlightenment. Maybe I should leave. Go back to Kyoto. Find some menial job. At least then I wouldn't be sitting here in pain, pretending this is leading somewhere. The thoughts spiraled on and on. Kenji tried to return to counting breaths. 1, 2, 3. But by breath 5 his mind had wandered again, this time into fantasy about what his life might be like if he left the monastery. He jerked his attention back, started counting again, lost count, started over. This was torture. This was the opposite of peace. This was just making him more miserable, more aware of his own inadequacy. When the bell finally rang to end the sitting period, Kenji stood with relief that bordered on joy. His legs screamed as blood returned to them. He hobbled to the dining hall for the morning meal, barely tasting the rice gruel and pickled vegetables. After breakfast came the work period. Kenji's assignment this week was sweeping the long wooden walkways that connected the temple buildings. He grabbed a broom and began sweeping, his movements mechanical, his mind still churning. He swept the same section of walkway he'd swept every morning for 2 years. Back and forth, gathering leaves and dust. Mindless work. Except this morning, something was different. His mind was so exhausted from its own spinning that it began to quiet. Not through effort, just through exhaustion. Like a child who finally stops crying because they've run out of energy. And in that quieting, Kenji noticed something he'd never noticed before. The feeling of the broom in his hands, the actual physical sensation, the smooth wood of the handle, the slight resistance as bristles touched the walkway, the sound of sweeping, the cool morning air against his face, the way light filtered through the cherry blossoms, dappling the walkway with shadow and sun. He wasn't thinking about these things. He was experiencing them. Directly, immediately, right now. And for just a moment, maybe 3 seconds, maybe 5, there was no Kenji. No one waiting for enlightenment. No one judging the practice. No one hoping for a future different from this one. There was just sweeping. Just this moment. Just the eternal, now revealing itself in the ordinary act of moving a broom across wood. Then thought returned. Kenji thought, oh, was that it? Was that awakening? And immediately, the direct experience was gone, replaced by mental commentary. But something had shifted. He had tasted something real, something that had nothing to do with achieving or becoming or waiting, something that was already here. That evening, Kenji had his weekly interview with Roshi Tanaka. He entered the small room where the Roshi sat by a charcoal brazier, bowed, and took his seat. "How is your practice?" Roshi Tanaka asked, as he always did. Usually Kenji would report on how many hours he'd sat, how well he'd counted breaths, how diligently he'd worked. But today he said something different. "Roshi, this morning while sweeping, I forgot I was waiting for something, and in that forgetting, I was completely present. It only lasted a moment, but it felt more real than anything I've experienced in 2 years of Zazen." Roshi Tanaka's face remained impassive. And then I started thinking about it, and the experience disappeared. "What were you waiting for?" "Enlightenment. Awakening. Some future state where I would finally understand and be at peace." "And when you forgot to wait, what did you find?" Kenji paused, searching for words. "I found that peace was already there, not as something to achieve, just as the natural quality of being completely present." Roshi Tanaka nodded slowly. "For 2 years, you have been sitting Zazen, waiting for something to happen. But Zazen is not about waiting. It is not preparation for some future awakening. It is awakening itself, the practice of being completely present to this moment, exactly as it is. But nothing has been happening during my sitting." "Nothing? You've been breathing. Your heart has been beating. Sounds have been arising and passing. Thoughts have been coming and going. All of this has been happening. You just haven't been present for it because you were lost in the story of waiting for something better." Kenji felt something crack open in his chest. "So all this time, you have been sitting in the eternal, now the only place that exists while mentally living in an imaginary future. The tragedy is not that awakening hasn't arrived. The tragedy is that you've been missing the awakening that's constantly present in each moment." Roshi Tanaka leaned forward slightly. "The monk you met in Kyoto told you he stopped waiting for peace and discovered it was already here. Did you understand what he meant?" "I thought I did. I thought he meant if I practiced hard enough, I would eventually discover peace." "No. He meant that peace is the nature of this present moment when it's met directly, without the filter of wanting it to be different. Peace is not in the future. It's here. Now. It's what remains when you stop waiting for it." Kenji sat in stunned silence. 2 years. 2 years of intense practice. All of it oriented toward a future achievement. All of it missing the point entirely. "What should I do differently?" he asked. "Nothing different. Just stop waiting. When you sit Zazen, don't sit waiting for enlightenment. Just sit. Completely, thoroughly. Be present to the sitting itself. When you sweep, don't sweep while planning your next meal. Just sweep. Be present to sweeping. The eternal now is not somewhere else. It's right here, in whatever you're doing, if you're fully present for it." The next morning, Kenji returned to the meditation hall. Same cushion, same wall, same aching legs. But something fundamental had changed in his relationship to the practice. He sat down, straightened his back, and instead of counting breaths while waiting for something to happen, he just sat, feeling the sitting, feeling the breath moving by itself, hearing the sounds of the whole, noticing thoughts arise and pass like clouds. He wasn't trying to achieve anything, wasn't waiting for any particular state. He was just completely present to what was actually happening right now. And he discovered something astonishing. When he stopped waiting for peace, peace was already there. Not as a special feeling, just as the natural quality of being present. When there's no reaching for the future, no resistance to this moment, what remains is a kind of okayness, a simply, ordinary, profound okayness with what is. Thoughts still arose. Discomfort still arose. Boredom still arose. But now he saw them clearly for what they were, temporary experiences arising in awareness, not problems to be solved or obstacles to be overcome. The bell rang to end the sitting. Kenji stood, and the sitting didn't end. He carried the same presence into walking, into eating breakfast, into his work assignment. He noticed that the eternal now wasn't confined to the meditation hall. It was everywhere, always. It was the ground of every experience. He had been living in it all along, had been living in it since birth, would live in it until death. There was literally nowhere else to be. The difference was recognition. Before, he had been present but didn't know it, was so lost in thoughts about past and future that he overlooked the only thing that was actually real. Now he recognized presence, saw it clearly, met each moment as it was, rather than as he wished it would be. Weeks passed. Months. Kenji's practice deepened, not because he achieved some new state, but because he became more and more familiar with simply being here. Just this. Just now. One day during another interview, Roshi Tanaka asked him, "Do you remember what you were waiting for 2 years ago?" Kenji smiled. "I was waiting to arrive at a place I'd never left. I was waiting for the eternal now to begin, not realizing it never ends, because it's always now. And now, I'm still sitting zazen, still sweeping walkways, still eating rice gruel. Nothing has changed externally. But internally, I've stopped leaving this moment in my mind. I've stopped abandoning now for the fantasy of some better later. And in that stopping, I found what I'd been seeking was always here." Roshi Tanaka nodded. "This is true practice. Not waiting for life to begin. Living it fully, right now, in each ordinary moment. The eternal now is not special. It's completely ordinary. But when you meet it directly, you discover that the ordinary is sacred, that each moment is complete, that nothing is missing." Kenji's story reveals one of the deepest traps in spiritual practice. We sit in meditation waiting for enlightenment. We practice mindfulness waiting to become more present. We do spiritual exercises waiting for the day when we'll finally arrive at peace. But that waiting itself is the obstacle. That orientation toward a future achievement is what keeps us from recognizing what's already here. The eternal now is not something you reach through practice. It's what you're living in right now, whether you recognize it or not. Practice doesn't create presence. Practice reveals the presence that's already constantly here. Think about the word present. It has two meanings. There's this present moment now, as opposed to past or future. And there's being present aware, attentive, here. These aren't two different things. When you're fully present, aware, to the present moment, now, you're living in the eternal now. But when you're present, now, but not present, aware, when you're here in body, but lost in thought, about elsewhere, and else when you miss it. You miss your own life. Kenji spent 2 years sitting in the eternal now while mentally living in an imaginary future where he would be enlightened. He was right here, right now, this whole time. He just didn't recognize it because he was waiting for something different. The tragedy wasn't that awakening hadn't come. The tragedy was that he was missing the awakening that was constantly present, the simple miracle of being alive in this moment. This is what most of us do most of the time. We're here, now, always. We can't be anywhere else. The present moment is all there is. But we're mentally somewhere else, replaying yesterday, rehearsing tomorrow, comparing, judging, planning, regretting. And in all that mental time travel, we miss the only thing that's real. This breath, this sensation, this moment of being alive. Feel your body right now. Feel the weight of it. Feel the temperature of your skin. Feel the breath moving in and out. This is it. This is your life happening. Not later when conditions are better. Not in some future moment of enlightenment or achievement. Now, Kenji discovered that peace doesn't come from perfecting his meditation or achieving some special state. Peace comes from stopping the war with this moment, from stopping the constant reaching for somewhere else, someone else, someone else. When you fully arrive here, not trying to be here, just recognizing you already are here, there's a natural settling, not because everything becomes pleasant, but because you stop adding the second layer of suffering. You stop the mental commentary that says, this shouldn't be happening, or I should be further along, or when will this change? You meet what is, exactly as it is. And in that meeting, there's peace. Not the peace of everything being perfect. The peace of reality being met by awareness without resistance. Right now, you're not waiting for sleep to come. You're just lying here, breathing, aware. This is the eternal now, not some mystical realm. Just this, just the ordinary, simpler, miraculous fact of being conscious in this moment. Tomorrow doesn't exist yet. Yesterday is gone. Only now is real. And now is always renewing itself, always fresh, always the first moment and the last moment and the only moment. Let the waiting go. Let the striving go. You're already here. You've always been here. There's nowhere else to be and never has been. Feel the relief of that. The release of finally arriving at the place you never left. Your legs aren't crossed in meditation. Your back isn't straight. You're not in a monastery. But you're in the exact same eternal now that Kenji was in. The same eternal now that every being in every time has always lived in. It's not special. It's completely ordinary. And that ordinariness is what makes it sacred. This breath, this darkness, this moment, nothing else needed, nothing else even possible. Stop waiting. You're already home. As the waiting dissolves, as you recognize you're already here, already present, already living in the only moment that exists. Feel how the body knows this. The body is never anywhere but now. It's only the mind that time travels. Come back to the body. Come back to breath. Come back to what's actually happening. And as you rest here, fully arrived in this moment that was never anywhere else. From the meditation halls of Japan, we journey now to the bustling streets of modern-day Thailand. where a taxi driver discovered that the eternal now doesn't require a monastery or special practices. It reveals itself in the middle of ordinary life, in traffic and chaos, and the simple choice to be here for whatever arises. Moment after moment after moment. Each one complete and whole and entirely enough. In Bangkok, Thailand. On a sweltering afternoon in June 2019, a taxi driver named Somchai sat motionless in traffic on Sukhumvit Road, his meter running, his fare a businessman heading to the airport growing increasingly agitated in the back seat. Around them, the city pressed in on all sides. Motorcycles weaved between cars. Tuk-tuks honked. Street vendors called out. The smell of exhaust mixed with grilling meat and jasmine from a nearby flower cart. Somchai's taxi was a well-worn Toyota Corolla, 15 years old, with cracked vinyl seats and a dashboard Buddha statue that bobbed with every pothole. The air conditioning wheezed, barely making a dent in the heat. Outside, the temperature was 38 degrees Celsius. Inside felt hotter. They hadn't moved in 20 minutes. Ahead, a sea of red brake lights stretched as far as Somchai could see. Behind, more cars packed in, eliminating any possibility of turning around. They were trapped in the living organism of Bangkok traffic. That daily miracle and nightmare. That test of patience that no one ever passed. The businessman in the back seat kept checking his watch, sighing loudly, muttering about missing his flight. Somchai watched him in the rearview mirror, a Thai man in his 40s. Expensive suit, gold watch. The pinched face of someone who spent his life running late and blaming others for it. "Can't you take another route?" the man demanded. "Not for the first time." "All routes same now," Somchai replied in his limited English, which he'd picked up from years of driving tourists. This time, everyone's stuck. "This is ridiculous. I'm going to miss my plane. Do you know how important this meeting is?" Somchai didn't answer. He had learned long ago that there was no good response to this kind of frustration. Nothing he said would make the traffic move. Nothing he said would calm this man. So he said nothing. Instead, he sat with his hands loose on the steering wheel and breathed. Just breathed. Let the sounds of the city wash over him. Let the heat be what it was. Let this moment be exactly this moment, with its stillness and chaos, its discomfort and strange perfection. Somchai was 56 years old, with graying hair and the permanently tired eyes of someone who worked 12-hour days, 6 days a week. He had been driving a taxi in Bangkok for 32 years, ever since he was 24 and needed money to support his wife and newborn daughter after his father's fishing business collapsed. He had imagined it would be temporary. A few years to save money. Then he'd return to his home village in the northeast, start his own business, live a simpler life. But temporary had become permanent. His daughter needed school fees, then university fees, then a wedding. His wife's mother got sick and needed care. There was always something, always a reason to keep driving. Now his daughter was grown with children of her own. His wife had passed away 3 years ago from cancer. His mother-in-law had died the year before that. He lived alone in a small apartment in a working-class neighborhood, and he drove his taxi through Bangkok streets day after day, year after year, trapped in a life that was supposed to have been temporary. He should have been bitter. Most taxi drivers he knew were angry at the traffic, angry at rude passengers, angry at the government, angry at life for not turning out the way they'd planned. They drove with permanent scowls, complained endlessly, honked at every slight inconvenience. But something had shifted in Somchai 5 years ago that had changed his relationship to everything. His wife, Noi, had been a devout Buddhist. She meditated daily, went to the temple every week, listened to Dharma talks on the radio while cooking. Somchai had always been nominally Buddhist. He made merit. He respected monks. He wore amulets, but he'd never taken it seriously. It was just cultural background, something everyone did. When Noi got sick, she faced her illness with extraordinary peace. Even in pain, even knowing she was dying, she remained calm, present, even joyful in small moments. Somchai had watched in amazement. How could she be so at peace while dying? One afternoon near the end, sitting by her hospital bed, he had asked her, "How are you not terrified? How are you not angry?" She had looked at him with eyes that were somehow both tired and luminous. "Because I'm here, beloved. I'm not fighting what is. I'm not wishing I was somewhere else. I'm just here, in this moment. And this moment, even with all its pain, is enough. It's all we ever have. But you're dying. Yes. And that's happening now. Not in the future. Now. So I'm here for it. Fully here. And when I'm fully here, there's a peace underneath everything else. Even under the pain." After she died, Somchai had been devastated. Lost, he drove his taxi in a fog, barely present, going through the motions of life while feeling hollow inside. Then one day, stuck in traffic, just like today, he had remembered Noi's words. This moment is all we ever have. He had looked around at the gridlock, the heat, the frustration of his passenger, and something had clicked. He could spend this moment, this actual, real, only moment that existed, wishing he were somewhere else. Or he could be here for it. Fully here, the way Noi had been fully present, even for her own death. He had chosen to be here. And in that choosing, everything changed. The businessman's phone rang. He answered it with barely controlled anger. "I'm stuck in traffic." "No, I told the driver to take Sukhumvit. Because apparently every road in this cursed city is backed up." "Yes, I know what time my flight is." Somchai tuned out the conversation and returned his attention to his own experience. The feel of the steering wheel under his hands, the sound of the engine idling, the smell of street food drifting through the window, the exact sensation of sweat on his back. He wasn't trying to make the moment pleasant. It wasn't pleasant. It was hot and uncomfortable and would probably cost him money, since the businessman would certainly complain and might refuse to pay the full fare. But he could be present for it anyway. He could meet it exactly as it was. This was what Noi had taught him, what 5 years of practice had shown him. Presence doesn't require pleasant circumstances. In fact, difficult circumstances are often the best teachers. They show you whether you're actually present or just using presence as another strategy to feel good. The businessman finished his call and leaned forward. "Listen, I need to make this flight. It's critical. I'll pay you double if you can find a way through this." Somchai met his eyes in the rearview mirror. "Sir, I cannot make traffic disappear. All Bangkok is stuck right now. If I could fly, I would fly. But I cannot fly. I can only sit here with you. This is unacceptable. I should have taken the train. Yes, maybe train would be better. But you are here now. In this taxi, in this traffic. This is what is real. Getting angry at what is real doesn't change it. The businessman glared at him. You're a philosopher now? Just drive. I am driving. I am driving 0 kilometers per hour in traffic that does not move. This is what driving looks like right now. Something in Somchai's tone not sarcastic, not defeated. Just stating simple truth seemed to pierce through the businessman's anger. He sat back, deflated. I'm going to miss my flight, he said quietly. Maybe yes. Maybe traffic will clear and you will make it. We don't know future. We only know now. And now we are sitting here. The man was quiet for a moment. Then, how are you so calm? This doesn't bother you? Somchai considered the question. It bothers my body. Heat is uncomfortable. Sitting still is uncomfortable. Losing money is uncomfortable. But I don't add suffering on top of discomfort. Discomfort is what is. Suffering is my mind fighting what is and wishing it were different. Where did you learn that? From my wife. She died 4 years ago. She taught me that the only moment we have is this one. Not the moment 5 minutes from now when traffic might move. Not the moment 2 hours ago before we got stuck. Just this one. And when I'm fully here for this moment, there's a kind of peace even in the middle of difficulty. The businessman was quiet for a long time. Then he said, I've been so angry. For years. Angry at traffic. Angry at delays. Angry at everything that doesn't go according to plan. It's exhausting. Yes, Somchai said. Anger is very tiring. But how do you just accept things? Doesn't that mean you're giving up, not trying to improve anything? No, not giving up. Just being realistic. Right now, in this moment, we cannot move. That's reality. I can accept reality and still look for solutions. In fact, I can see solutions better when I'm not caught in the fog of anger and resistance. He paused, then continued. See that motorcycle there? It can weave through traffic. Maybe if you were on motorcycle, you could reach airport. But you're not on motorcycle. You're here. You can spend this time fighting reality in your mind, or you can be present for what's actually happening. Your choice doesn't change the traffic, but it changes your experience completely. The businessman looked out the window at the gridlock. I've spent my whole life rushing to the next thing, the next meeting, the next deal, the next achievement. I'm never actually where I am. I'm always leaning into the future. Yes, this is normal. Everyone does this. We think the important moment is always the next one. But the next one never comes. When it arrives, it becomes this one. And if we're not present for this one, we miss it. We miss our whole lives. Traffic began to move, just slightly. A few car lengths. Then it stopped again. The businessman checked his watch reflexively, then laughed at himself. You know what's crazy? Even if I miss this flight, there will be another one. This meeting is important, but it's not life or death. I've made it into this huge catastrophe in my mind, but really, it's just traffic. Just a delayed flight. Just one moment in a long life. Somchai smiled. Yes, this is wisdom. To see clearly what is actually happening instead of the story about what is happening. My wife used to tell me I was never present. I thought she meant I didn't spend enough time at home. But maybe she meant something deeper. Maybe she meant you were there in body, but your mind was always somewhere else. Always in the next thing. Never here. The businessman nodded slowly. I think you're right. And I think I've been doing this my whole life. Traffic moved again. This time it kept moving. Slowly but steadily. They had broken through whatever bottleneck had been holding everything back. Somchai merged into the flow, heading toward the airport. You might make your flight after all, he said. Maybe. But honestly, right now, I don't care as much as I did 20 minutes ago. Something shifted while we were sitting there. I actually felt present for the first time in I don't know how long. Really here. Not planning, not regretting, not rushing. Just sitting in a hot taxi, stuck in traffic. And it was okay. More than okay. It was almost peaceful. They reached the airport with 15 minutes to spare before the flight's boarding time. The businessman might make it if he ran. He paid the fare and added a generous tip. Thank you, he said. Not just for the ride, for the reminder to be present. Somchai bowed slightly. I didn't do anything. You discovered something that was already there. The present moment is always available. We just usually ignore it. After the businessman hurried off toward the terminal, Somchai sat in his taxi for a moment before looking for his next fare. He took a breath, felt his body sitting in the driver's seat, noticed the sounds of the airport announcements, rolling luggage, car engines, noticed the heat, the tiredness in his shoulders, the simple fact of being alive in this moment. This was his practice. Not formal meditation, though he did that too sometimes. But this, the practice of being fully present for whatever life was offering right now. Traffic, difficult passengers, heat, boredom, joy, sorrow, all of it. The eternal now wasn't some transcendent realm beyond ordinary life. It was this traffic, this heat, this tired body, this moment exactly as it was. He had spent so many years wishing his life were different, wishing he weren't driving a taxi, wishing he had more money, more status, the life he'd planned when he was young. All that wishing had taken him away from the only life he actually had, this one, unfolding moment by moment. Whether he was paying attention or not, now he understood what Noi had known. The eternal now is eternal not because it lasts forever, but because it's always new, always fresh, always the only thing that exists. You can't step into the same moment twice, because moments don't repeat. Each one is born and dies, giving way to the next one, which is also born and dies. On and on, forever. And underneath all this constant change, there's awareness, the witnessing presence that notices everything but isn't changed by anything. That was also eternal, not in time, but beyond time, always here, always now. Somchai started his engine and pulled back into the flow of airport traffic, looking for passengers. Another moment, another ride, another opportunity to practice being fully present for life as it actually was. The radio played an old Thai song he remembered from his youth. He hummed along. The afternoon sun slanted through the windshield. Everything ordinary, everything sacred. Just this, just now, just exactly what was here. Nothing else needed. Nothing else even possible. Somchai's story shows us that we don't need special circumstances to live in the eternal now. We don't need to be in a monastery or on a meditation cushion or in some peaceful retreat. We can practice presence in traffic, in difficulty, in the middle of ordinary life. In fact, difficult circumstances are often the best teachers. They show us where we're still resisting reality, still wishing this moment were different, still believing that peace is something that arrives when conditions improve. But peace doesn't come from improved conditions. Peace comes from meeting whatever conditions are present without resistance. This doesn't mean you don't work to change things. It means you don't add mental suffering to physical discomfort by fighting what already is. Think about your own moments of frustration, sitting in traffic, waiting in line, dealing with delays. Your mind probably does what the businessman's mind did. It jumps to the future, worrying about what you'll miss, getting angry that things aren't moving faster. But what's actually happening in those moments? You're sitting, you're breathing. Life is continuing. The present moment is unfolding. And you're missing it because you're mentally somewhere else, fighting reality, wishing things were different. Somchai learned to use those difficult moments as practice. Instead of seeing traffic as an obstacle to presence, he saw it as an opportunity for presence. Instead of waiting for calm conditions to be present, he brought presence to chaotic conditions. This is the practice. Can you be here for this, right now? Exactly as it is, not making it better. Not spiritual bypassing the discomfort. Just being present for the full truth of this moment, the discomfort and the awareness of discomfort, the resistance and the awareness of resistance. Feel your body right now. If there's discomfort somewhere, a sore shoulder, a tight jaw, restless legs, can you just feel it without the story that it shouldn't be there? Can you meet the sensation directly, without fighting it? This is what Somchai did in traffic. He felt the heat, acknowledged it was uncomfortable, and didn't add the second layer of suffering, the mental story that it shouldn't be this hot, that the air conditioning should work better, that he deserved better than this. The heat was real. The story about the heat was optional. Noi taught him something profound. This moment is all we ever have. Not as a spiritual platitude, as literal truth. Show me yesterday. You can't, it's gone. Show me tomorrow. You can't, it hasn't arrived. Only this moment exists. Only now is real. And now keeps renewing itself. Each moment is fresh, is new, is the eternal now revealing itself again for the first time. When you grasp this, really grasp it in your bones, not just understand it intellectually, it changes everything. You stop postponing your life. Stop waiting for better conditions to be present. Stop believing that peace is something you'll achieve when you finally get your life organized just right. You realize that peace is available right now, in this imperfect moment, in the middle of whatever difficulty or mundanity you're experiencing. Not because the conditions are perfect, because you're meeting the conditions directly without resistance. This doesn't mean you become passive. Somchai still looked for ways to navigate traffic. The businessman could still try to catch his flight. You still work to improve your circumstances, but you do it from presence, not from the anxious, contracted state of fighting reality. And here's what's beautiful. When you stop fighting this moment, when you meet it exactly as it is, something shifts. Not necessarily externally, the traffic might still be there, but internally, there's a spaciousness, a kind of okayness, even in difficulty. Because the eternal now, when met directly, is always enough. Not pleasant necessarily, not what you wanted, but complete in itself. Whole. Let your body settle deeper into rest. Let the resistance drain away. Whatever discomfort is present, whether physical, emotional, or neither, can you just let it be what it is? Can you be present for this exact moment without wishing it were different? This is the practice. Not achieving some elevated state. Just being here for what's actually happening. The breath moving. The sounds present. The sensations arising and passing. All of it happening in the eternal now. Somchai drives his taxi through Bangkok streets right now. Moment after moment. Each one complete. Each one enough. And you lie here breathing. Moment after moment. The same eternal, now revealing itself in a different form, but the same essential truth. Here. Now. This. Nothing else needed. As you rest in this recognition. As the fighting with this moment gradually releases, notice how life continues to live itself. The breath breathes. The heart beats. Awareness witnesses it all, without effort. From the crowded streets of Bangkok, we move now to one final teaching. One last recognition of the eternal now, not in some distant time or exotic place, but right here, right now. In this very moment, as you listen to these words, as you feel your body settling into sleep, as the boundaries between waking and dreaming begin to soften, and you discover that presence doesn't end when consciousness changes, that the eternal now holds everything, every state, every experience, every breath from birth to death and beyond. In the ancient city of Varanasi, India, along the Ghats that descended to the Ganges River, there lived a beggar named Rajesh who had nothing, no home, no family, no possessions except the clothes on his back and a small wooden bowl for collecting alms. Every morning he would sit on the same stone step near Dasaswamed Ghat, watching pilgrims bathe in the holy river, watching sadhus perform their rituals, watching the sun rise over the water and turn it from black to silver to gold. The year was 2015, but time moved differently here. The Ghats had looked essentially the same for thousands of years. The same steps leading down to the same river. The same boats ferrying pilgrims. The same vendors selling flowers and incense. The same prayers rising like smoke into the air. Ancient and eternal. Everything happening now just as it had always happened. Rajesh was 41 years old. Though he looked older, his face was weathered and lined, his hair prematurely grey, his body thin from years of irregular meals. He wore a faded orange kurta that had once belonged to a sadhu who had died and left it behind. His feet were bare and calloused from walking on hot stone. Around him, the city roared with life. Thousands of people moving through the narrow lanes behind the Ghats. Temples ringing their bells, vendors calling out, motorcycles honking, cows wandering freely, sacred and unbothered. The smell of incense mixed with sewage, of flowers mixed with smoke from the cremation grounds upriver. Varanasi contained everything life and death, sacred and profane, beauty and squalor, all pressed together in a density that overwhelmed the senses. Most beggars fought for position on the Ghats, competed for the attention of pilgrims, developed aggressive tactics for extracting rupees. But Rajesh just sat, quietly, his bowl in front of him, his eyes half closed, present to whatever came, a few coins, nothing, a blessing, a curse. All the same to him now, Rajesh had not always been a beggar. He had been born to a poor family in a village outside Varanasi, the youngest of 6 children. His father was a laborer who died when Rajesh was 8. His mother struggled to feed them all. When he was 12, she sent him to live with an uncle in the city who promised to give him work in his small shop, selling religious items to pilgrims. The uncle had turned out to be cruel, working him 14 hours a day, feeding him scraps, beating him for small mistakes. Rajesh ran away at 15 and lived on the streets. He found work where he could, carrying bags, cleaning, sweeping shops. He saved every rupee, dreaming of starting his own business, of rising above poverty, of proving he was worth something. By the time he was 25, he had saved enough to rent a small stall near the ghats. He sold prayer beads, small statues, incense, the same kind of items his uncle had sold. He worked hard, was honest with customers, slowly built up a regular clientele. For a few years, life improved. He could eat regularly. He rented a tiny room. He even thought about finding a wife, starting a family. Then the monsoon of 2002 came. The Ganges flooded worse than anyone had seen in decades. The water rose over the lower ghats, swept through the narrow lanes, destroyed hundreds of shops, including his. Everything he owned, his inventory, his savings hidden in a box under the floor, all of it washed away in one night. Rajesh tried to rebuild, borrowed money from a lender who charged impossible interest. But he couldn't recover. The debt grew. The lender became threatening. In desperation, Rajesh fled, abandoning what little he had left. He became one of the thousands of homeless people in Varanasi. For years, he lived in bitterness and rage. He would sit on the ghats and watch wealthy pilgrims throw money into the river as offerings, money that could have fed him for a month. He watched corrupt priests grow fat on donations. He watched the world continue its business while he starved. But then, gradually, something shifted. Maybe it was exhaustion. He simply ran out of energy for anger. Maybe it was spending so much time sitting by the river, watching it flow endlessly. Never the same water twice. Maybe it was listening to the prayers and teachings that floated through the air, some of them sinking into his consciousness despite himself. He began to notice something. The pilgrims who came here seeking liberation, seeking enlightenment, seeking some future transformation, most of them looked miserable, stressed, worried, rushing from temple to temple, performing rituals mechanically, checking items off a spiritual to-do list. And Rajesh, who had nothing, who was supposedly at the bottom of society, who should have been the most miserable of all, he began to feel something that confused him. Not happiness exactly, but a kind of stillness. A sense that right now, in this moment, sitting on this stone, watching the river, he had everything he needed. One morning, a Western tourist sat down near him on the steps. A woman, perhaps 30 years old, with the expensive backpack and careful clothing of someone who had researched exactly what to wear in India to be respectful while still looking distinctively foreign. She had a guidebook open and was reading about the spiritual significance of the ghats. She glanced at Rajesh, seemed uncomfortable with his proximity, started to get up and move. But something made her hesitate. Maybe the way he was sitting, very still, very present. Not the desperate, aggressive energy of most beggars. "You speak English?" she asked. "Little bit." "Yes," Rajesh said. "How long have you been sitting here? Today? Maybe 2 hours. In life? 7 years now. Every day." The woman looked at him with curiosity. Why here specifically? Rajesh smiled. Why not here? I must be somewhere. This somewhere is as good as any somewhere. But don't you want more? Don't you want to improve your situation? What situation? The question seemed to confuse her. Your life. Being homeless. Begging. Don't you want to change that? Change it to what? To have many possessions that I must worry about. To have money that I must protect. To have a home that I must maintain. Each thing we own, it owns us back. I am very free. The woman frowned. But you're suffering. Living on the street. Not knowing where your next meal is coming from. I am not suffering right now. Right now, I am sitting on stone by a river in the morning sun. I can see the water, hear the bells, smell the incense. My body is thin, but it functions. My mind is quiet. Where is the suffering? But what about tomorrow? What if you don't get enough food? Tomorrow does not exist. Tomorrow is a thought happening now. When tomorrow comes, it will be today. And today I have this moment. Only this moment. Always only this moment. The woman stared at him. You sound like the spiritual teachers I came here to find. But they all have ashrams and followers and charge money for their wisdom. And you're just a beggar. Yes, but maybe because I have nothing, I can see clearly what's actually true. The teachers you seek, they know the words, the concepts, the philosophy, but do they live it? Or do they just teach it while secretly wishing for bigger ashrams, more famous students, more recognition? The woman sat down fully now, her guidebook forgotten. Can I ask you something? I've been traveling through India for 2 months, visiting temples, attending meditation retreats, reading sacred texts. I'm seeking, I don't know, enlightenment, peace, liberation, something that will make me feel less anxious, less lost. But the more I seek, the more confused I become. Everyone tells me something different. Everyone has their system, their technique, their path, and I don't know which one is right. Rajesh looked at her with kind eyes. Why are you seeking? Because I'm not happy. I'm not at peace. I feel like something is missing from my life. And when you find this thing, you're seeking this enlightenment or peace, what will you do with it? I don't know. Be happy? Be free? Free from what? From anxiety? From constantly feeling like I'm not enough? From the sense that happiness is always just around the corner, in the next experience, the next achievement, the next thing? Rajesh said. So you are seeking a future moment when you will finally be at peace, when you will finally arrive, when the seeking can stop. Yes, exactly. But the seeking itself is what prevents peace. You cannot arrive at now by seeking a better future now. You can only arrive at now by being now. The woman looked frustrated. But how do I do that? How do I just be now? That's what all the teachers say. But nobody explains how. Because there is no how. How is a future question. How do I get there? But there is no there. There is only here. You are already now. You have always been now. You cannot be anywhere else. Rajesh picked up a stone from the ghat and held it out to her. See this stone? It exists now. Not in the future. Not in the past. Now. The river exists now. These steps exist now. My body exists now. Your body exists now. Everything that exists now. The past is memory happening now. The future is imagination happening now. Only now is real. But I understand that intellectually, it doesn't help. Because understanding is not the same as being. You understand that only now exists. But you are still living as if the future is more important. You are still seeking a future moment of peace instead of being present to the peace that's available right now. I don't feel peaceful right now. No, look around. What is actually happening? Not your thoughts about what's happening. Not your judgments or worries. What is actually here? The woman looked. The river flowing. The sun warming the stones. Pilgrims bathing. Bells ringing. Her own breath moving in and out. I see. Life happening, she said slowly. Yes, life happening. And where are you? Here, sitting on these steps. And in this moment, right now, is anything actually wrong? Not in your thoughts about your life, not in your memories or plans. Right now, this moment, is anything actually wrong? The woman was quiet. Then, no. Right now, I'm okay. This is the great secret that everyone seeks and nobody finds because they're looking in the future. Peace is not in the future. It's right here, right now, in this moment that already is. You don't need to seek it. You just need to stop leaving it. The woman sat with Rajesh for over an hour that morning. They didn't talk the whole time. Mostly, they just sat in silence, watching the river, watching the pilgrims, being present to the endless now. Before she left, she placed several hundred rupees in his bowl. Thank you, she said. You've given me more than any expensive teacher. Rajesh smiled. I gave you nothing. You discovered what was already here. After she left, Rajesh looked at the money in his bowl. It was more than he usually made in a week. He could buy good food, new clothes, maybe rent a room for a few nights. He considered it. Then he walked along the ghats until he found a family, a young mother with 3 small children, clearly very poor, begging for food. He gave them all the money. The mother stared at him in shock. Why? You are also poor. I have what I need. Rajesh said, right now, in this moment, I have everything. This breath, this sunlight, this river. What more could I want? He returned to his spot on the steps, sat down, felt the stone beneath him, watched the water flowing endlessly to the sea. Each moment the river was different, new water constantly arriving and departing, and yet the river remained, eternal and present. This was his life now, not waiting for it to get better, not remembering when it was different. Just this, just now, just the eternal present moment revealing itself in the simple act of sitting by a river, breathing, aware, alive. He had nothing. And in having nothing, he had discovered everything. Rajesh's story shows us something radical. We spend our lives accumulating possessions, experiences, knowledge, achievements, thinking that when we finally have enough, we'll be at peace. But peace doesn't come from having more. It comes from recognizing what's already here. The eternal now is not something you reach after years of spiritual practice. It's not a destination you arrive at through meditation or study. It's what you're living in right this second, whether you recognize it or not. Think about the woman in the story. She had traveled halfway around the world, spent thousands of dollars, read countless books, attended multiple retreats, all seeking peace. And a homeless beggar with nothing showed her what she'd been missing. Peace was available in the very moment she was seeking to escape. This is what we all do. We think peace is in the future when we get the promotion, when we find the relationship, when we lose the weight, when we finally achieve enlightenment. We treat now as a problem to be solved, a moment to get through on the way to a better moment. But that better moment never comes. When it arrives, it becomes now. And if we haven't learned to be present to now, we'll just project our longing into the next future moment, and the next, and the next. We'll spend our entire lives waiting for life to begin. Rajesh had nothing external, but he had recognized something essential. The eternal now is the only thing that exists, not as a philosophy, as direct, undeniable reality. Show me the past right now. You can't. It's gone. It exists only as memory arising in this present moment. Show me the future right now. You can't. It hasn't happened. It exists only as thought arising in this present moment. Only now is real. Only now has ever been real. Only now will ever be real. And when you truly recognize this, not just understand it intellectually, but see it clearly in your direct experience, it changes everything. You stop postponing your life. Stop waiting for conditions to improve before you allow yourself to be present. You realize that this moment, exactly as it is all you have. And it's enough. Not because it's pleasant or perfect, because it's real, because it's all there is. Feel your breath right now. It's happening in the eternal now. Feel your body. It exists in the eternal now. Hear whatever sounds are present. They're arising in the eternal now. Everything you experience now. Not later. Not after you've achieved something or changed something. Now. This doesn't mean you stop planning or working toward goals. Rajesh wasn't advocating that everyone become homeless. He was pointing to something deeper, your essential being, your consciousness, your awareness. It exists only now. And when you're fully present to now, there's a completeness to it that doesn't depend on circumstances. The woman had everything materially that Rajesh lacked. But she was miserable because she was always seeking a future moment of peace. Rajesh had nothing materially, but he was at peace because he had stopped leaving this moment. Which one was truly wealthy? This is the great reversal that spiritual teachings point toward. The treasure isn't out there in the future. It's right here in the present. And the great tragedy is that we spend our lives seeking what we already have, missing what's already here. Let yourself feel this. Right now, in this moment, not in some imagined future of perfect peace, but right now you are breathing. You are aware. You are alive. This is the eternal now. This is all there is. And when you stop fighting with this moment, stop wishing it were different, stop using it as a stepping stone to an imagined better moment when you finally arrive here. Fully and completely, there's a peace that comes, not from circumstances improving, from recognition, from seeing clearly what has always been true. You are here, now, and you have never been anywhere else. Rajesh sits on those ghats today, this very moment, in the eternal now that includes his sitting and your lying here and everything in between. one seamless present moment, constantly renewing itself, never the same twice, never anywhere but now. You don't need to become a beggar to find what he found. You just need to stop abandoning this moment for the fantasy of a better one. You just need to be here, fully here, finally here, and here is where you've been all along. There's something else Rajesh understood that the woman was still learning. The eternal now isn't just about this moment in time. It's about the timeless awareness that witnesses all moments. When Rajesh said, "I have everything," he wasn't talking about possessions. He was talking about consciousness itself. The simple fact of being aware, of being alive, of experiencing this present moment, that was the treasure. That was what could never be taken away, never lost, never damaged. You have this treasure too, right now. You've had it since birth. You'll have it until death. It's the awareness that's reading these words, that's feeling the breath, that's witnessing thoughts and sensations arise and pass. This awareness is always present, always now. It never leaves. Circumstances change constantly. Pleasant becomes unpleasant. Comfort becomes discomfort. Happiness becomes sadness. But awareness remains steady, witnessing it all. When you recognize yourself as this awareness, rather than as the changing circumstances being witnessed, everything shifts. You're no longer blown around by every change in conditions. You're grounded in something that doesn't change, the eternal present awareness that holds everything. This is what spiritual traditions call the true self, or Buddha nature, or pure consciousness. Not some mystical entity, just this simple, obvious, always present awareness that you are. Feel it now. Notice that you're aware. You don't have to create awareness, it's already here. You can't stop being aware, even if you try. Even in deep sleep, something is aware of the sleep, or you wouldn't remember sleeping. This awareness is eternal in the sense that it's always now. It never experiences past or future. It only knows this present moment. So when you rest in awareness, you rest in the eternal now. Rajesh had discovered this, not through study or practice, but through having everything stripped away until only the essential remained. And the essential was this: awareness, presence, the eternal now. You don't need to lose everything to discover it. You just need to look, to notice, to recognize what's already here, right now. You are aware. This is the treasure. This is what Rajesh had, what the woman was seeking, to what you already possess, but keep overlooking while searching for something more. Let your body settle completely now. Let go of trying to understand. Let go of seeking. Just be here, aware, present. This is it. This is the eternal now. Not somewhere else. Not sometime later. Here, now. Always now. And as your consciousness begins to drift towards sleep, notice that even the drifting happens in the eternal now. Waking and sleeping, thinking and not thinking, all of it witnessed by the same timeless awareness. You are that awareness. You always have been. You always will be. And it is always, always now. As the searching stops, as you recognize the treasure that was never lost, as awareness simply rests in its own nature, present and clear and timelessly here. We arrive now at the final teaching. Not a new teaching, but the recognition that's been present all along, that this moment, this breath, this awareness reading these words is the eternal, now revealing itself, has always been revealing itself, will always be revealing itself, because there is no other time, no other place, nothing but this infinite, intimate, eternally present now. There is a garden that exists everywhere and nowhere. It has no location you can point to on a map, no address you can visit. Yet, everyone has walked through it, is walking through it now, will always be walking through it. This garden is the eternal present moment, and you have never left it. Picture it not as a place, but as a quality of experience. Soft light, the sense of arrival, the feeling of coming home to something you never left. In this garden, there is no past pulling you backward, no future calling you forward. There is only this, only now, only the gentle unfolding of what is. Some arrive at this garden through great effort and then realize the effort was unnecessary. Some stumble into it accidentally and then spend years trying to find it again, not realizing they never left. Some live their entire lives within it without ever knowing they're here. The garden asks nothing of you. It doesn't require perfect meditation posture or years of practice or flawless understanding. It requires only one thing, that you stop leaving, that you stop abandoning this moment for the thought of another moment, that you finally, gently, completely arrive here. And here is where you've always been. In this garden, there walks a Korean monk who once asked, "What is this?" until the question dissolved into pure presence. There walks a Vietnamese tea master who learned that perfect form without awareness is empty, but awareness without perfect form is alive. There walks a Tibetan shepherd who discovered that the sky of awareness holds all thoughts like clouds, letting them come and go without clinging. There walks a Chinese calligrapher whose brush moves now from presence rather than technique, each stroke fresh, each character alive. There walks a Japanese monk who stopped waiting for enlightenment and found it was already here. There walks a Thai taxi driver who meets traffic with the same peace others seek in silence. And there walks a beggar by a river who has nothing and everything, who sits in the eternal now, not as an achievement, but as the simple recognition of what has always been true. They are all here, and you are here with them. Not separate, not different. All of you walking in the same garden, breathing the same air, living in the same eternal moment that includes all moments and transcends all moments. Let's stop pretending there's something you need to learn. Let's stop pretending you need to become someone different, somewhere different, someone different. You are here, right now. This is it. Feel your breath. Don't control it. Don't deepen it. Don't make it special. Just notice it's breathing itself. Life is living itself through you without any effort from you. This breath is happening in the eternal now. The next breath will happen in the eternal now. Every breath you've ever taken has happened in the eternal now. Because now is all there is. You can think about the past, but that thinking happens now. You can plan for the future, but that planning happens now. You can worry, hope, remember, dream, all of it happening now. In this single, seamless, eternal present moment. There is no escape from now. And why would you want to escape? Now is all you have. Now is all you've ever had. Now is all anyone has ever had or ever will have. The eternal now is not a concept to understand. It's what you're experiencing right this second. The feeling of lying in bed, the darkness behind your eyelids, the sound of your own breathing, the simple, undeniable fact of being alive and aware. This is it. This ordinary, everyday, completely miraculous moment. This is what all the stories have been pointing toward. This is what the monk discovered, what the tea master learned, what the shepherd recognized, what the calligrapher touched, what the beggar possessed. Not something they achieved, something they stopped overlooking. You don't need to remember the Korean monk's question. You don't need to prepare tea with perfect presence. You don't need to herd yaks on a mountain, or write calligraphy, or sit in meditation halls, or drive through traffic, or sit by a river. The stories were never about those activities. They were about recognition, about waking up to what's already true, about seeing that the eternal now isn't somewhere else, it's here, in the middle of your ordinary life, hidden in plain sight. Let the stories dissolve. Let the teachings dissolve. Let even these words dissolve. What remains? This breath, this awareness, this moment, just this. Not dramatic, not transcendent, not special in the way your mind thinks spiritual experiences should be special. Just simple, just ordinary, just completely, perfectly, already whole this. You can feel your body settling into the bed, gravity pulling you down, the mattress supporting you, your muscles releasing their daytime tension. This is happening right now, in the eternal now. And the eternal now holds everything. It holds your comfort and your discomfort. It holds your clarity and your confusion. It holds your waking and your sleeping, your living and your eventual dying. All of it happening in this vast, spacious, timeless present moment. You don't need to hold on to anything from tonight. You don't need to remember the techniques or practice the methods or even recall the stories. Just let it all go. Let the whole night dissolve like a dream upon waking. Let the words and concepts and ideas drift away like clouds. What you needed to absorb, you've already absorbed. Not in your conscious mind. Deeper than that. In the wordless awareness that was listening underneath the listening. In the presence that was here before the first story began and will be here after the last word fades. Trust that. Trust the wisdom that doesn't need words. The understanding that doesn't need concepts. The peace that doesn't need circumstances to improve. Feel your jaw soften. Let your tongue rest in your mouth. Let your eyes settle deeper into their sockets. Nothing to see. Nothing to do. Nothing to become. Your shoulders can drop. Your belly can soften. Your legs can be exactly as they are, still or restless, comfortable or not. All of it welcome. All of it held in the eternal now. The breath continues by itself. The heart beats by itself. Life goes on living itself, whether you're paying attention or not. You can let go. You can stop managing, controlling, trying. You can just be here, breathing, aware, present, alive. As you drift now and you are drifting, whether you notice it or not, the boundary between waking and sleeping begins to blur. This is natural. This is perfect. This is exactly what's supposed to happen. And even in this drifting, you're still in the eternal now. Sleep happens in the eternal now. Dreams happen in the eternal now. Deep, dreamless rest happens in the eternal now. There is no leaving this moment. There is only the transformation of what this moment contains. Waking consciousness gives way to drowsy consciousness, gives way to dream. Consciousness gives way to no consciousness at all. And awareness holds all of it. Witnesses all of it. The eternal now contains every state, every experience, every transformation. So you can let go completely. You can release into sleep with full trust that you're not leaving anywhere, not losing anything essential. The eternal now will be here when you wake. Because the eternal now is all there is. Feel the darkness. It's soft, isn't it? Welcoming. The darkness doesn't ask anything of you, doesn't judge, doesn't expect. It just receives you exactly as you are. Your breathing is slowing, deepening. The spaces between breaths growing longer. This is your body's wisdom. It knows how to rest. It knows how to let go. You can trust it. Thoughts still drift through. That's fine. Let them drift. Like leaves on a stream. Appearing, floating past, disappearing. You don't need to follow them. You don't need to engage with them. They're just thoughts, just mental weather, just passing phenomena in the eternal now. The body is heavy now, so heavy, sinking into the mattress like a stone into water, deeper and deeper. Nothing to hold up, nothing to maintain, just sinking, just releasing, just dissolving into rest. Before sleep takes you completely, one last recognition. This moment has always been enough, will always be enough, is enough. Not because it contains everything you want, but because it contains what is. And what is all that exists. Past is gone. Future hasn't arrived. Only this remains. Only now. And now is infinite. It has no beginning and no end. It's always new, always fresh, always the first moment and the last moment and the only moment. You are held in this infinite now, have always been held, will always be held. There is nowhere to fall because you're already home. The breath continues. So soft now, so gentle, barely noticeable, rising and falling like the tide, like the river in Varanasi, flowing endlessly to the sea, like the passing of seasons, like everything that comes and goes within the eternal now that never comes and never goes. Your eyes are closed, or maybe they're open and you don't remember. It doesn't matter. Seeing and not seeing both happen in the same eternal now. Sound fades. Or maybe sound continues, but you stop registering it. The boundary between you and the world grows soft, permeable, until there's no clear division between inside and outside. Just this. Just awareness. Just the eternal now holding everything in its vast, spacious, timeless embrace. Let go of trying to stay awake. Let go of trying to understand. Let go of trying to remember. Let go of trying to be present. You already are present. You can't not be present. You've never been anywhere but present. Let go of the day. All of it. Everything that happened. Everything you did. Everything you said. Everything you worried about. Let it dissolve into the past where it belongs. Let tomorrow stay in tomorrow. Let this moment be only this moment. Let go of your name. Let go of your story. Let go of being someone who needs to improve, needs to achieve, needs to become, just for now, just for this dissolving. Let all of that go. What remains when everything else is released? Just awareness. Just breath. Just the simple fact of being alive in this moment. That's enough. That's everything. The darkness is complete now, deep and soft and welcoming, like returning to the womb, like returning to the source, like coming home after a long journey to discover you never left. Sleep comes, not as something you do, but as something that happens. The eternal now transforming from waking to sleeping, from consciousness to unconsciousness, from form to formlessness. And through it all, something remains. Some essential witnessing presence that was here before you were born and will be here after you die. The eternal now itself. Pure presence. Pure being. Pure awareness. You are that. Have always been that. Will always be that. Rest in that knowing. Rest in that being. Rest in the eternal now that holds all coming and going, all sleeping and waking, all living and dying. Rest. The breath continues. The heart continues. The eternal now continues. Nothing to hold. Nothing to remember. Nothing but this. This. May you wake tomorrow with fresh eyes, seeing the eternal now in the morning light, in the first breath, in the simple miracle of being alive one more day. May you recognize that peace is not something to achieve, but something to notice. Here, in the middle of your ordinary, imperfect, beautiful life. May you stop leaving this moment for an imagined better one and discover that this moment, exactly as it is, has always been enough. May you know, deep in your bones, that you are home, have always been home, will always be home. Because home is not a place, home is now, and now is eternal. Sleep well, dear friend. The eternal now holds you in its infinite embrace. Nothing can harm you here. Nothing is missing. Nothing needs to change. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. You are exactly who you're supposed to be. You are exactly in the moment you're supposed to be in. This moment. This eternal, ordinary, sacred, complete moment. Just this. Just now. Just tonight. You have traveled through 8 journeys, yet you never left this single moment. You met monks and tea masters, shepherds and calligraphers, beggars and taxi drivers, all of them discovering the same truth in different forms. The eternal now is not somewhere else. It was never somewhere else. It's here. It's been here all along. You don't need to remember these stories. They were never about accumulating knowledge. They were about recognition, waking up to what's already true. And what's true is simple. This breath, this awareness, this moment. That's all. That's everything. As you drift into sleep or rest in this quiet darkness, know that the wisdom you needed has already settled into the wordless places inside you. Not in your thoughts, in your being. Tomorrow, you may notice moments when you're fully present, washing dishes, walking, drinking water. When those moments come, smile. That's the eternal now saying hello. That's recognition happening naturally. And when you forget, when you get lost in past or future, when you leave this moment, that's okay too. Just notice. Just return. As many times as needed. Each return is a homecoming. The eternal now is patient. It waits. It's always here. Always available. Always holding you in its infinite embrace. You are enough. This moment is enough. Nothing is missing. Nothing has ever been missing. Rest in that truth. Let it hold you as you sleep. You are home. You have always been home. Welcome home.